But I think it's pertinent.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
That's coming back to bite you.
In sixth grade, I sang karaoke. It was really okay. So
Yes, thank you. And it's open for discussion. I thought those were some good questions. I went kind of poking around on some other sites to see what other people were asking. I love the map. I mean, to me, I love that idea. I just want to kind of know.
Come out the way you imagine.
Well, is everybody who's responding coming from this area or just like in this central area? You know, are we getting any people that are responding that live way down here that are probably using other resources? I don't know. I just think it would just be interesting to know. I don't know. That really, I'm sorry.
You know where the sheriff's
Super helpful, but.
Oh, well, probably right there under share, you had your mouse on it, it's kind of a greenish button.
Okay, I went there.
What's it say?
I just looked at
Go to advance.
Looks good to me. It's all just the same.
No, and share the time.
You should.
You wanna give, you're trying to give me access. If you go down to that same thing, and I believe, no, sorry, the arrow to the right of that, where it has the pop-up menu that came up,
It's in the corner of that button.
just to the right of where you're at.
to the right.
Yeah. And go down to advanced share options. Well, okay, either host only or all participants. I don't know if you wanna give access to all participants or.
I don't think it would matter.
Now that we have that many, would know how. So I thought before too, we used to get the list of participants over on the right.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you put it right in there?
Yeah.
Make co-host.
Whatever matches your scan. That's me.
Oh, wait, I'm waiting. What's that?
You know,
Oh, okay. Wow, it looks like that sharing might be just.
We did that last night, actually.
Oh,
Can't your people just sign in? Can't they just sign in?
I wanna share a photo presentation, just as an overview of the parks.
Will it let her share it if you make her a co-host?
Are you able to send the presentation to the person that's able to control it?
I have mine.
Make a host?
Here you go, mine's charged.
This is one, right?
Oh.
Yeah, okay. It's the kind of dumps its charge off.
Okay.
Can I try?
They died fast.
Yeah. So I think you'd have to turn your video on.
You have to turn it on, I don't think so. What's cool?
you don't want to wear
Awareness, right? Yeah.
Yay.
Is that your screen?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Hey, Randy, don't forget to hit record at the
Yeah,
right time.
I already did.
Now.
Okay, so we should,
All right, I think we need to call the meeting to order, so if you can all rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Did you hear that just now? Sounded kind of like a drum.
Yep. That was an amen.
I think they kicked the desk.
All right, first we've got roll call of the board members. So Wendy is absent, so I can do that. So Melnick,
here,
Hester, here, Aaron's,
Here.
Slopsona, here. And if you could do your roll call. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hubble,
Here.
Boyce here, Laskowski,
Here.
Melton,
Here?
Castor,
Here.
and Cosgrove.
Okay, setting and approving the agenda. We are not able to amend the agenda tonight because Wendy Oksema is absent for a special meeting. Just need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion made by Melissa Melton, second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Jill Custer. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Not really, but formality, this is a board special meeting.
Okay, so we're just the board members.
It should only be board members that should be approving motions.
Okay,
So just saying, if you wanna redo that.
do we want to redo that? The actual Melissa made the motion to approve it, so you're saying we need a board member to do
I think
that?
it's board members, yeah.
Okay, how about I make a motion to approve the agenda as written,
And I will still second.
and Jill Custer seconded that. So for the board members, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unopposed, all right. So first we have public comment. Would anybody like to make a public comment that's present in the hall?
This one.
I'm sorry, the rules about declaration of conflict of interest. I'm breezing through this, sorry about that. Does anybody have a conflict of interest with the items on the agenda tonight? No conflict of interest noted. So now we have time for public comment. Any person shall be permitted to address the meeting of the township board. Public comments shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Comments shall be directed to the board as questions to the chair. Any person wishing to address the board shall speak in the lectern and state his or her name. And if a township resident, persons may address the board on matters that are relevant to the township government issues, and no person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding the time needed to answer board members' questions. The chair shall control the amount of time each person will be allowed to speak, and it shall not exceed 5 minutes. So, would anybody like to make a public comment in the township hall? Okay, got no takers on that. All right, moving on to correspondence.
Sorry. I don't know if Tom is, there's a Tom and Sue online, I don't know if anyone wants to make a comment.
We do not allow public comment on Zoom.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, so, under correspondence, I do have a note that Wendy Hoeksema put together before she left town, for training. So this is, comments that she had for the Parks and Recreation meetings. I'm sure this is close enough, so, and I can make a copy for you folks. So, she said, as we talk about how to plan for the future of our parks and recreation in our township and complete our 5-year recreation plan, and as I will not be able to attend the upcoming meeting, I wanted to share some thoughts based on recent notes and discussions and observations. I hope this memo helps the conversation move forward. The previous 2021 recreation plan is impressive, especially with its detailed listing of township assets. It's a strong foundation, and we can build from that existing work to help guide the next steps effectively. Decide whether or not the recreation plan is a needed item to spend time on. Is there someone who is going to dedicate time to writing DNR grants? So I think she was trying to say, we should decide whether or not it's worth doing a recreation plan and spending the time on it, because you would then, to get a benefit, you would need to spend time writing DNR grants. I think that's her point, it was a little bit clunky. Is the PRAC better suited as a resident outreach subcommittee for the planning commission and to help with the capital improvement plan, which I provided those documents in the packet. Key points: spend less, do more. Instead of investing heavily in surveys or consultants, let's focus on making the most of what we already have. Simple tools like short, easy to complete surveys or informal community conversations that can help gather useful feedback and should be focused on the majority demographic of our residents. Focus on recreation programs. Residents would benefit from more recreation options like a pickleball league, a garden club, or a community activity that brings people together and uses existing park spaces. Think yoga in the park, a community Christmas tree lighting, etc. work with others, consider partnering with nearby communities or the school district for a joint plan that could share costs / ideas and increase participation. Keep on going with maintenance in mind. Any plan you move forward with should include taking care of what we already have, which includes trails, restrooms, and equipment, so our parks stay safe and usable. Community impact, keep in mind how many people a project will serve, and please prioritize projects with broader benefits. Increase community awareness. Many on the last survey did not know about the current facilities. Make sure residents know about opportunities and programs and promote what we already have. And at last, she has suggestion, instead of spending a lot on big projects, let's focus on easy, useful improvements like adding programs, taking care of what we already have, working with others. While this is not always fun, this will help us do more with the budget and reach more residents. I have an electronic copy, I'll provide that to you.
I do also. You too.
What's that?
I thought you were asking who needs a copy.
No.
I think we've all got it.
And
I didn't recognize you
I
already
believe
got
that
it.
since we did read that from a board member into the record, that actually belongs as part of the minutes, is there? Or not?
Well, yeah, the clerk would retain that.
Right,
I won't, it'll be documented in here.
check with her on that, whether
But
it
the
becomes
clerk
part of the
retains
minutes.
I would
Okay.
love a hard copy.
Moving on to the agenda, the first one that we had here, short discussion was about campground / park business function decisions. We actually don't have one of those to make today that I'm aware of, unless somebody else knows of one.
You had 5 seconds allowed.
5 minutes.
Oh.
It was, I only put there as a placeholder in
okay.
case we needed a decision,
Not
but
that I'm aware.
I'm not aware.
Can we get a quick update on what's going on with the campground? Cause I just haven't heard maybe the latest. I'm just like the
Basically,
basic functions.
duties were divided amongst, we've got our lead ranger, Tom Bartnicki.
Okay.
And then we did, at our last meeting, process a pay increase and a grade change for Tripp, can't recall his last name.
And Vicky.
Wagner. And then Vicki Emerson also is picking up some of the administrative duties and just making sure people stay on task and coordinating some of those things in addition to being a park ranger.
Okay,
So
so
that's
Tom is
what's
kind of heading everything up right now, and then the other two are assisting with that process?
So we went back to the model of 2 park rangers, or lead park rangers, and so Tripp is doing a lot of the administrative kind of side of it, and then Tom is, obviously with his expertise, well, he's primarily doing a lot of the mowing and all the parks that we have, right? But then other projects, so we're putting a list together of all of these. We're trying to make the park, we're trying to upgrade the park and create the gem that it used to be, right? And there's a lot of things that need to be done, and we're creating a list, and the park rangers will be busy this summer. We have a lot to do, and not a lot that's really expensive. Some of it is really not that expensive, we just totally repainted the inside of the ranger station. It's all we have for right now, and they have the stain to do the outside to make it look as good as it can. They bought flowers to make it welcoming. They put Memorial Day flags all over throughout the park, making it welcoming and whatever. So we're gonna replace the split rail fences. We are doing something different with those rotted out bumper parking area things. And we're also focusing on High Prairie Park. So they have a schedule now in the ranger station. It was a little bit ignored in the past about paying attention to High Prairie, the bathrooms, cleaning them. And now there's a schedule about who went there and who did what, to make sure that the bathrooms stay clean. And so I think things are really gonna work out well. So I'm
And
pleased.
obviously, Tim's stopping in there several times.
It's 2 miles away, so
It's real
I
close,
just-
so he's stopping in.
spot visits.
And we did cut a purchase order this week to address the beach erosion problem, which it doesn't fix the problem, it just puts a Band-Aid on the problem, so. They have,
Dumping more sand.
but this time it is beach sand, not close. like the last time, I think Phil Sand was up there. So,
It will look so much better.
yeah, and then he's also in touch with getting quotes and talking to the DNR about permit for shoreline protection.
And we're also gonna be signing a purchase order soon, hopefully, if Linda signs it, but striping the parking lot again, it's just so faded. And then putting directional arrows so people know which way to go, putting them right into the road. And we may even put some, we'll see what they recommend, but that new parking area when we have a fishing tournament or whatever, people are parking out which way and it really blocks people or whatever, but we may even consider painting, parking spaces on the gravel to see if people will, so we'll see.
When you say you needed to replace the parking barriers, are you just, are these like wooden posts? I'm trying to picture it in my head, are they
Those
just the wooden posts?
concrete things with the rotted
With the rotted timber on it.
timber on top.
It wasn't like a 4x4.
Down by the old pit toilets, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
and up by the
Really
dump
old
station, they're just nasty.
I don't know if we could use them anywhere, but the Hops Farm is tearing out all those 22-foot long poles for $30 each. They're selling them for,
So
I just bought 60 of them.
the hops farms are pulling a lot of those things out, and all we need is something notched to fit on the cement barrier. Well,
I'm gonna let you guys take care of that offline, okay?
surely.
All right.
Okay, this is supposed to be 5 minutes, okay? All right, so, moving on, the next thing I just wanted to spend not more than 10 minutes at the most on is just, I included in the packet General Ordinance 48, which was what was initiated in order to set up the Parks and Recreation Committee. And you can see it was dated back in 2012. And there really have been no significant changes other than adding, increasing alternate members to 2. So 5 regular members and up to 2 alternate members. And so, I think you will see if you read it, that the purpose is quite simple. It's not elaborate. It says an ordinance to create Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee for the Township of Whitewater for the purpose of preparing, reviewing, and updating the recreation plan, which we'll be talking about tonight, that covers the township parks and rec areas as a guide for recreational development within the township for consideration by the town board, just meaning the town board would approve a draft that is put together by the committee. Further, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee shall recommend recreation programs, policies, acquisitions, and improvements to the township board, as well as other duties that the township board may assign. Okay, questions on that? I don't think there's anything else in here that's really particularly relevant to today, other than it does say you shall meet at least once a month, which I know that you are compliant to with a majority of 3 members. As your quorum.
So, just, okay, so this is an ordinance.
Yes.
If we want to change this in any way, we have to go through the whole process of public hearing, posting in the newspaper. Seems like I saw that from the past, right? Because it's an ordinance.
I don't know why
That's how
they
they
did it as an
correct it.
ordinance. It
That's how
seems-
they created it.
It seems strange to me that they did it that way, but that's what they did, so,
Well, they also wrote an ordinance to create the planning commission.
yes. Which predated the zoning enabling act, I think.
Oh, maybe that's why.
I think it was done back when Larry Lake was super.
It is, he signed it.
Carol did too, yeah.
So, the one thing I would say is, I know the prior township board had a practice of doing public hearings for any changes to any general ordinance and the zoning ordinances require a public hearing per state law. But, that was a practice, but I've yet to see that in the policy and procedure manual. So I believe that, public hearing or not on something like this is at our discretion, and usually you would make that decision based on content. Like, how big of a deal is it to a community, the changes that you're proposing to make?
So are these then bylaws that follow that?
There are bylaws,
But
but not included.
is that what this is?
Right.
Or is that not the bylaw?
No, these are not the bylaws.
Oh, that's just part of the thing.
Who adopted the bylaws, the PRAC, or was the town board given copies of those bylaws?
Yeah, in fact, we were kind of holding off to revise ours this year because there was so much moving parts. But we did, I think just in our last months, we finalized from our draft, and that got submitted in to the board, to Wendy.
So it says the committee shall adopt bylaws for the transaction of business and shall keep record of its motions, transactions, and findings, which records shall be a public record. That's all it does. It's one sentence.
So one thing that I thought about coming into this meeting and just kind of, I thought it would be appropriate at the very beginning to hear from the PRAC is I've listened to a lot of prior board meetings with the prior board and what we've been through since we've been elected, and I would like to hear from, you members on what your understanding is about why does PRAC exist? What was the ultimate purpose of having an advisory committee, and why it was to the board? Not to be critical of one way or the other, I'm just curious, does anybody know where this all came from and why?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think it was on the clerk's plate at that time to try to manage everything that was going on with the clerks, and doing the 5-year rec plan was, I think, the cultivator of going in that direction of an advisory committee, because it was just too much for one person to handle. They wanted to have, a group, as well as fundamentally just what it says, to advise to the board ideas. How can we, improve our parks? What things can we add, or is there land acquisitions that we should be looking at? Things like that. So it's, as an advisory committee, it's really just to be a helping hand more than anything else. It was never meant to be a program coordinator, a league coordinator, and we don't deal with operations, so that was always, a very big disconnect after the clerk's position changed when she wasn't the park administrator any longer. That became a gaping disconnect of communication between the board and the PRAC. And the park manager position was never really solidified to help meld that together even. And then we didn't have a board liaison for a long period of time, so there's been just a lot of really unfortunate non-communications to move things forward. So this is a great opportunity, I think, for both the board and us to get a good foothold on what do you want out of us, and what do we feel, or what our positions are as the PRAC. You gotta understand, we meet once a month. We're not a, daily employee, and we all have jobs, obviously, so it is a very finite time that we have to put our heads together and try to do our best.
And your volunteers.
And we're right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So did that help answer your question?
Yeah, it did, yeah.
Carol was running the
She was the
park
clerk at the time.
and doing the clerk position at the same time. And
Right.
so I think she just didn't have enough time to do it all.
Yeah.
So I think that's why her and Larry.
But this started before her, because Carol Hocking and, they created this with Carol and Larry.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this was even prior
It
to,
was 2 years roughly.
before Cheryl.
It was before Cheryl.
Carol
Hocking
Hocking,
was.
I'm talking.
Carol, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Carol did kind of the same thing as Cheryl. They both
Okay,
ran
I
the
thought
park
I
and did
I
clerk.
thought I heard Cheryl, it was
Yeah.
Carol, okay.
They both did similar
Right.
things.
Okay. All right,
Thank you.
all right. Anything more on that, or move on? So I think the next thing is to talk about the 5-year recreation plan. So we've got 20 minutes to do that, and specifically, we're gonna discuss the survey as well. All right, so Melissa, I think this is your next.
20 minutes, huh? You don't have to use it all.
Right.
Well, I guess let's start with, the pattern of how we got here. So 5-year rec plans, this is actually the 3rd rec plan that I've been involved with in modifying and getting up to the DNR. To answer Wendy's point, do we even need to do a rec plan? Well, our township just got $200,000 for a boat launch. I certainly hope a 5-year rec plan is worth our time and money to try to go for grant money. Has the PRAC personally gone on to the Michigan DNR and tried for a grant. We have not, since I've been on there, we have not. All of it has been really funded or fundamentally done through engineering firms when they go for great grants like that. Not to say that we can't, it's just that that's never been a push or an agenda that the board has asked us to pursue. But I do think it would take a different scale of time. So given that, we reviewed, our rec plan, and Gary has been really super helpful. He comes from a lot of experience in parks area that he brought on, all the list of questions. We've modified it. You guys do have a paper copy of some additions. I think that these were ones that Jill.
These were just
added.
last minute additions that.
So we first wanted to just kind of say, this is kind of the first step of the rec plan, in that we want to know what the community thinks. In the last go around, which is 2020, you can imagine a lot of people's mindsets, right? It was COVID. So their mindset today might be different, right? So it's really important that we get that update from the public. What's important to you? What do you want to see in our parks? And that's where these questionnaires kind of comes into play. And then other than that, we continue our process of going through the existing 5-year rec plan. We did originally look at, do we want to hire a professional firm? We figured this board's, from the budget aspects or the budget constraints, we figured that was not going to fly. And so we did continue moving forward with dusting off the 5-year plan and starting that process, which ultimately next Tuesday we have a special meeting that will dive deeper into that as a work bee session. So that's kind of where we're starting, is this questionnaire. I don't know if, Jill, if you found out from our shipping people or the mailing people, if we can do numbers on it?
I have not called them yet. We talked
Okay.
about it a little bit at the last special or joint meeting as well, but yeah, we're
So our hopes, this was Gary's idea. I really wouldn't have even thought of this honestly, because it wasn't really an issue before, to help essentially so that more than one family couldn't, or a family couldn't submit more than one application, right? So you want to restrict the dump-ins. So each survey would have a code associated to their residence as it's been mailed out. I furthered that to say I think we could also coordinate and put a QR code on there that they could still put their stamp number, however, if the mailing people can do that, and do a Survey Monkey as a form that's electronic that they don't have to worry about mailing it in. So that's kind of as far as we've gotten. So we want to get your thoughts on the questionnaire and just the direction that we're going in. Is this the direction the board wants us to go in? Would you guys rather this be professionally hired in and we can stop wasting time on
The
this?
survey starts on page 9 on the PDF, if anybody wants. These were just additional questions that were.
I mean, first of all, I would say that I would definitely check out, and maybe you guys have already done this, what other people have used for questionnaires. I think that, the county has done well in other townships. Okay, good.
Yeah, a lot of this is based off what Gary's found in other townships.
What's different about page 9 and then
There's more. The additional pages are just extra questions that weren't on the original survey. So I didn't want to print the whole entire survey and waste the paper.
Yeah,
These
my
were just
my
additional.
only initial comment is, I would want a little more time to kind of go through. I do appreciate you brought questions to us in advance of going out for a survey. I think that's very important to do that, because I've seen surveys before that go to perhaps the decision makers and say, I never like the questions, they don't mean anything, blah, 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 and then you don't take any action. But, so I think that's really good. But whether, kind of like what Wendy was saying, this is so different from like a short-term rental issue. As far as I'm not worried about people overloading a survey on a Parks and Recreation survey, as it would be about maybe short-term rentals or something, along that magnitude. So I wouldn't be overly concerned about people doing that. I don't know why they would. It doesn't make sense to me, but So I think maybe SurveyMonkey kind of things would work for that, if you wanna work in QR codes or whatever that means, but, I mean, I know what it is, but I don't know how you make it work, but, so, I mean, that makes sense to me, but, just to keep track of how many of our residents actually, do the survey and kind of track who's being responsive is a good thing, but, so far, what I saw looks good.
I like the idea of using SurveyMonkey because last time we did it, they had our website person put the questionnaire online and that resulted in me being given a book full of paper, which then I had to put in the computer in that Excel file. And that's.
You're talking about for the PRAC that you did?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's completely not necessary.
Right.
I did it, but it was, and by the way, there were many duplicate IP addresses in there. I put them all in, but there were many duplicates. And so I do think SurveyMonkey might be able to wash that duplicate IP address out for you. I'm pretty sure they can do that.
Are you saying that is the sole means of disseminating the survey?
Oh, no, I think you have to offer paper
Okay.
to especially some of our residents
Sure.
are not big computer users. I think there's quite a few in the community that are not big computer users. So we
We were
need to
even
provide
thinking
that.
of hand numbering, printing the surveys out, hand numbering them and mailing them. And we thought that it's historically, from what I hear, there's been very little response in the past. I mean, they've hardly gotten handfuls of surveys back. And we thought instead of spending all this money on these professionals doing stuff, to just bite the bullet and put a self-addressed stamped envelope in with the survey. I mean, they'd get the survey, they could fill it out and put it.
I think there were about 200 respondents last time.
Could this be with
That's
the
what I was
Around
gonna say.
200.
tax bill?
It could,
Why
if
couldn't
we
this
can
be
get it done.
I mean, we got 2 weeks before the tax bill final
Mhm.
prep has to be done, but,
Maybe we should.
if we're getting close to the final questions, why couldn't this just be,
It could.
you can do
We're
it
trying
to, you can do it by paper, or you can go to the website, or you can, whatever, that kind of QR code, whatever.
Yeah.
But, just do a little coupon in the tax bill.
What do you mean a coupon?
Well,
Not the actual survey.
you're already gonna have a note in the tax bill about ROS, I think. Volunteer.
Yeah, volunteers, right.
Maybe, so your notification on the tax bill is gonna be taken with that. But then, you could put just a coupon in about this survey that would have the QR code if you wanna take the survey on the Park and Rec program, click on this, right? Or go to our website, if we have it ready by then, go in and do it, they can just electronically do it that way. If you would like a mailed copy, please contact us. I don't.
Or come in, they
Or come in. But I think there's a way to do this without spending an awful lot of money,
on mailing.
Yeah, a separate mailing, we just did a newsletter, and it was more pages, but, you're more than $1,000.
I think it was roughly 50-50 5 years ago. Half of them came in on paper, half of them came in online.
So what is everybody's feeling about not mailing a paper copy?
It's the time of tabulating that if it comes in paper. I mean, that's very time consuming for some, as you know, so it's always sit down and do that. So
I would not mail it.
You wouldn't mail?
I don't think most people are gonna fill it out.
What about, this would be a really short time frame, but we did discuss this. What about if we had it in paper form, if anyone wanted to take it through the dump day line?
Give them something to
Well,
do
no,
while
I
they're
mean,
sitting.
it's not a short time frame. We could hand that out,
It's only a short time frame because that means we gotta get our stuff together.
Well, yeah, but I just printed a list of all the people that were gonna check in, so we can hand that out when they check in. It's not a big deal.
Have surveys there that they could take with them.
I
Well,
think
yeah,
pretty
you were,
good.
yeah, you were gonna do the check-ins, so you could,
Wouldn't cost us anything but print them.
And we got a cheap printer now. Thank you, Jill.
I do agree with what Tim said at the beginning, there's a lot more concern about voting on something as significant as a zoning ordinance change, as opposed to just trying to gather information on Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, it's not like you're changing any laws or anything based on.
Right, exactly, you're just trying to
Or
do that.
ordinances or anything.
So,
Okay, so we could probably, so 3 different ways then, maybe 4. So we could do a cleanup day, hand it out. We could put it on the website, of course, as a
Yeah.
link to the survey
I would
monkey.
invite you to cleanup day. to hand out.
I'm getting there every year.
You know,
I literally am there every year.
all right,
Not the true mailer, but the coupon mailer and the taxes. And the Survey Monkey just in general as an online, so kind of 4 different avenues, is that kind of what
yeah,
I'm
so the
hearing?
way they would get to the Survey Monkey is
Or
through, if
paper.
you've got a QR code in the tax
View.
bill, or they could go through the township website and put it on the front page.
Yeah.
They could go
Just have a
either way.
link.
Yeah.
What's your time frame? What's your deadline in as far as reporting results back to all of us?
I think it was September.
And that kind of brings me to some issues here I wanted to talk about in terms of timing here. We have 6 months essentially to get this done. Just for background, I've done several of these in my prior life and I know what is required to get everything completed. There is, I guess let me go through a couple of things here, just kind of speaks to the issue of timing on this. First of all, there is a version of this in Word that can be used, so you don't have to. I found it, I think Wendy found it for us.
And I'm not sure, I have the most latest copies, so I'll get that from Wendy, she should have the latest
But it's in Word,
in Word.
as opposed to a PDF, so
Yeah.
that's.
So we can edit it.
Yeah, you don't have to convert it from PDF to Word, which is never perfect. Secondly, the last one was done between 2020 and 2025, right? That was the 5-year period for it. I know that the guidelines were changed in 2021 in terms of what DNR tells local governments to do as far as the steps and everything, so I don't know if you've looked at that and see if it's changed in any way in terms of requirements that have to be in the plan.
I have reviewed it, I don't know if Gary, if you dove into it too deeply. There was a couple small items that I noticed, not very significant.
I haven't looked at it myself
Yeah.
in detail, I just know it was updated.
The dates, they did modify the dates slightly from back when, I think 2020, when they were, and there was 1 or 2 other small changes. Can't remember what they were off the top of my head though.
So it's all uploaded now to DNR's migrated.
Correct, and I have access to it as a sub, whatever they wanna call it. Like, I don't have admin rights, so that is something I need to work with Wendy. I'm assuming she would still have, as a clerk, she would still have access, because that has to be uploaded through her.
So then we're updating the inventory of all the park and recreation assets based upon the old inventory, you're just doing new things, right? Would be what's been
We would just be
changed over time.
updating, anything that's changed, correct?
I mean, I see that you have a timeline in there that takes you to January to get this done. I also know that there's a 30-day public hearing requirement and that's baked into that. And so, and the town board passing a resolution and circulating it to regional planning agencies and all that, which is some time that's, I assume we built into that schedule.
We did.
I'm not sure about that requirement.
Is that really, I mean, for.
It's listed in there too, there was something that was, I saw that I'm not sure if that was new or what. Again,
But is that after the board has approved it?
No, I think it's for comments from.
Oh, for public comment, okay.
Yeah, it's part of the
So-
public comment process.
At that stage, I believe, I guess I don't know about going to other county agencies. I do know it has to go out to public entities like the Record Eagle, Elk Rapids News, something like that. It's usually on our website.
It says submit plan to DNR and county and regional planning commissions, so I know the county planning commission was dissolved. I
Isn't
don't
that
know if
after it's finished though?
by February 1st,
Yeah, so that's the
it
final,
has to be in.
That's the final draft.
after the board's adopted it.
Right,
Because we had to submit it to the DNR before and to the county.
And does the DNR have a certain amount of time to provide feedback?
it has to be into them
They don't
by,
necessarily have to.
Yeah, online, it
Yeah,
says
so
your
they
five-year
have-
plan must be on
because the grant
file.
deadline is always in March for the
Okay.
DNR grant, so they want your rec plan done and approved before you submit new applications for grants, which would be land and water conservation, it would be the passport program, and the trust fund notes.
It seems like that would just create a log jam of them approving them.
Well, I mean, everybody's plans for different time, so they're only getting 1/5 of them.
Oh.
Not everybody's doing.
Yeah, that's what I'm reading here on the website. Must be on file with the DNR, the Michigan Grants, which is the website I think you were referring to on February 1.
Yeah.
Of the year they intend to apply for or submit.
They never really gave us feedback after you submitted it or anything, they just.
No, if there's deficiencies, I'll send you something and say
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
didn't do this, and that's what gets kicked back, and then you have to fix
Yeah.
it, send it back in, so.
Right.
But I guess I'm hopeful, but I know it's also a lot of work here, I think you know that.
Yeah, we baked into our budget request this year, several extra meetings for specifically for work bee sessions, on top of our regular monthly meetings, because yes, it is a lot of work.
So you've identified about $5,300 worth of costs that were for SurveyMonkey subscription, ADA assessment, maps, graphic design, that kind of thing.
Correct.
5,300, was that including the, professional services to do the survey though? Inclusive of that?
It was originally a lot more
It
than
was
that,
originally a lot more.
Okay, so that was,
Yeah.
10 or 15,000.
So it looks like the biggest
and we
cost
had
we
the
have
cost,
here is graphic design and doc prep.
and then we had mailing money, oh no, we were assuming we were gonna get that mailing,
Do it all by SurveyMonkey.
and with taxes.
I guess I didn't understand the graphic design at $2,400 if it's already formatted in Word,
Yeah.
or you're always editing it.
Mostly for maps,
Okay.
if we
Oh,
redo,
okay.
if we redo any mapping to put in the survey, or to put in the,
I saw map updates for $5 for $38, 5 for 38 fees. I mean, who are you gonna have for the mapping? Is that
County.
county?
GIS, county GIS.
Josh?
Yes, Josh, I
Yeah.
talked to Josh.
He helped us in the past a
Yeah,
lot,
he's
They
very,
actually
very good.
have, I'm sure they have them from previous,
yeah.
that have been updated.
Joe, to delay my thoughts. The commissioners have my thoughts.
So-
The whole, you
Yeah, I don't think that budget's out of line myself. I mean,
know how it starts out the cover page?
I'm just trying to understand where the cost came
Yeah,
from.
do they have that?
Yeah, on page 7 is where we start talking about the survey, the memo on the survey. You're on the PDF. And go into some of the budgeting on that.
The dollar amount to me didn't seem.
You're talking about your
Yeah.
comments for the 5-year plan, not the survey, right?
I think your numbers would be moved around when you're said and done, but I think the overall cost is.
I think, yeah, the overall's probably.
My pushback would be to hire a independent firm to conduct the entire survey that I think can be done. You know, that's what,
That's what Gary wanted too.
I know, but it's $10,000 to $20,000. Okay, you know, and it's just, you know, I mean, we're trying to reach the sentiment of the people. You already have a really good plan in place, and you know, seeing it, I mean, visionary, very visionary. And we pray for the grants, right? We've got to apply for them, but you know, I think it's just, you know, touch and base, like you said, and what I read is, you know, what's changed in the last 5 years, you know, are there new people, are there new thoughts, is there more interest in, and I think you're gonna get that with some of these simple survey techniques.
I don't think there's gonna be much to update with like the park inventory, because not a lot has changed.
We didn't acquire or sell.
Yeah, we can't afford to add anymore to
I mean, you
it.
might-
It's just what it is.
Yeah, so,
So to me, the
That part
hard
should go pretty
part, or the substantial part is siphoning out exactly what the priorities are.
Right.
You know, I mean, you're gonna get survey results, they're gonna say, we like this, don't like that, whatever, fix this, fix that, whatever. So that's gonna give you a whole list of things to go on, but at the end of the day, what matters is what you identify as potential projects over the next 5 years. So do you have a process in mind to work through that, and how you envision that coming together?
taking the results from the public survey, you mean?
Well, how are you going to put together a?
There was a list of capital improvements in the current plan,
Yes,
and last time we put that on didn't we provide that?
No,
In the,
not
how did we do
Not as a
that?
list, we
It wasn't as a
provided,
list,
we provided questions, I would say, that revolved around the
around that
each
capital
part,
improvement
each
list.
project. And got an essence of where people really wanted to invest public money. And I think that's, ultimately what we'd be doing this time too, is really reviewing what the survey results are, right? What the overall assessment from public is. We'd also get input from the board. We've sent a couple different emails on different projects lists in the beginning of this year. So we would look to essentially, between us, the board, and the public comments, really put together that capital budget list in an order that is appropriate.
But then, and is that list required for
Yes.
Yes.
submission?
it is.
Which
So-
is happening right at the same time, and the other information that I provided in here, this whole 6-year capital improvement plan, that should be assessed on that.
Exactly. We should really be able to take our 5-year rec plan capital improvements and
Just like the fire department have their own, yours.
Like, one of the big differences is though, and this has nothing to do with you guys as a team, but the planning commission tends to get larger audiences participating in the meeting, more visibility regarding that. And that development of that 6-year capital improvement plan will take place at their meetings. So that will be good for you to get more feedback that way. So
And know too, that whatever you put together, even though it may be submitted to the state, which is fine, I don't think it really makes a difference, but as we go through every year through the budget process and we update the 6-year capital improvement plan, move things forward, move things back, whatever it might be, add things, your plan, your 5-year plan is gonna change. The priorities based on the decision makers at the planning commission and the board, those priorities might change. And so I don't think that it impacts what you file with the state. You met the filing requirement, the guideline, it's just the local community changing their priorities.
Yeah, we're just filing
Right.
our best,
Yeah.
our best snapshot at that time.
And fundamentally, if we're inclusive of projects, even if they're maybe pie in the sky projects, but it's on that list because maybe there's a potential, there could be a huge donor, right, who just wants to commit $1 million to our township. You never know, and if it's in our plan though, it gives you that leverage to go to the state and say, hey, can we now have some funding for this?
So I think another dimension of this too is that the planning part is great and the identification of priority projects is great, but at the same time, you can't go after a trust fund grant without having a project be a high priority project. So if you're applying for, $300,000 for major capital improvement at High Prairie Park, the components of that project should be pretty high on the list. Otherwise, they're gonna say, why are we funding a project that's not a high priority? So that funding availability needs to work into the priority stuff as well, so.
So what you're saying, Randy, is that project is driven from what the community needs are.
Yes,
And not in reverse, what we think the community needs are. It is the community's
Right.
needs that drive that project.
and I'm just saying we need to keep an eye on the available funding for projects. I mean, and they all have different dimensions, like there's the passport program,
21 grants.
land and water conservation fund, the trust fund dollars, all of it.
So, and that's a good point, and I think Jill sent it out, and this is a frustration of mine, is that, we found out, there's this grant opportunity, but the deadline is next month.
Yeah.
Well, this has probably been out there for how long, and it's like, there's no way you're gonna pull that together in a month and get it filed, right? And I worry where the disconnect is, where we're missing opportunities to apply for grants. And, I hear a lot of times that there just aren't enough people that are applying for the grant money that is available. And I don't know why we just don't apply for everything we can apply for. And I understood maybe from Linda that we have somebody in our community that is a really good grant writer person, maybe would volunteer to help write grants, I don't know, but I just think we need to, if we're gonna go ahead and file this thing, if we're not gonna apply for grants, don't even bother filing the thing with the DNR, let's apply for every grant we can apply for and get as much money as we can. But
There was.
if we can match the money.
Yeah, matching is
Right.
considered.
Well, some of these grants are not easy to write. I mean, I've written a couple
Right,
of them
yeah.
for $500,000 in the trust fund dollars, and I know what it takes to do that. And it's not a small undertaking, because you're competing against every other community in the state of Michigan, and while there's a lot of money available collectively, it's not much when you spread it out all over the state. So.
But when you get to those level projects, again, just like the boat launch, you really wanna engage in
Yeah.
professional services to do those kind of grant, right?
It's bigger grant project.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not, did the
Melissa.
boat launch require that the rec plan be done?
Yes,
Okay,
That was DNR.
I know, but it's a stated requirement for 3 programs that I'm aware of: passport, land and water conservation, and trust fund.
What is a passport, Randy?
It's, when you get your license plate, you can check on there, it's been, you get your access to state parks,
Yeah.
it gets a little tag on the license plate, that's called a passport. Some of that money goes to state parks, some of it goes to a grant program, and that's the grant
Okay.
program. But the dollars in that are typically like, I think, $100,000 that you can get.
smaller
Whereas-
projects.
Whereas the land and water is a federal program, and that's 50-50 matching, and then the trust fund dollars is the big nut there, where you could get, it was $500,000, now it's $300,000, I think. So $300,000 goes a long way. And you're matching it with 25%, I believe, was the last. So there's highly competitive, and then also there's the acquisition dollars that sometimes, I know those dollars go wanting sometimes, because acquisition is harder to do, you know, if somebody wants to donate part of the property for park, there's funds through the trust fund to be able to get acquisition, to expand parks or to develop new ones.
So I wanna do a little time check here. I think we're running a little beyond our budgeted time for this. So I guess, are there remaining questions that need resolution before we move on to the park reviews? I'm just concerned, did you get the answers you needed? I think I heard people say they didn't have a problem with your budget for the survey. Is that right?
I know,
Nobody got concerns with
Well,
that?
it's of, excuse me, it's of the dollar amount that we have to make the board, right? It's over $5,000, their estimate.
Yes, but these are
It's all broken out. It's broken out.
individual small
Well, then
expenditures.
some stuff is just you and Wendy then.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is that graphic design, I guess that
Right.
looks like quite a bit of money, just,
could we allocate $5,300 to the development of the park and rec
well,
plan?
did we already put that in the budget for them, Tim? When we did the Parks and Recs budget, did it include master plan development?
15,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought it was 15,000 is what we
Okay.
approved,
So I think we're okay on that.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be great if you would spend 5 instead of 15, that'd be good.
But
Linda, one of the things that I did, and I don't know if it was included, I put together my thoughts on the 5-year plan based on our existing plan and what I saw other communities doing. And as I went through that, and this could be a question for Randy, a substantial portion of the community background is gonna come from our comprehensive master plan. So we're not going to redo a floodplain map, we're gonna grab that information off the master plan and put that in there.
Sure.
Which really basically changed the dynamics of the budget when we began to think along those terms. Let's use what we have
Yeah.
and then
And I did,
save the cost on that.
I didn't include it in this meeting, I figured that's really our work bee session, you know, where we're gonna get into now the actual meats of what are we gonna add and subtract.
We've got the files in JPEGs or PDFs or whatever you need.
Right. And then whatever, if we needed something from the county, we'll get that from the county. The other thing I wanted to point out is that when we talk about matching funds and leveraging other people's money, that's where that long-term plan comes in place. My personal feeling, and I've 40 years of experience, we never spent money, our own money, without spending someone else's money. So if you're making an electrical upgrade at the campground, unfortunately, you didn't leverage the money you're putting in there. You could have made that a $300,000 project and done something else with it, assuming you were able to convince the state that it was a worthwhile project. When you talk about the 50% match, unless you look out in the future and say, hey, at some point we want to do this project, we're going to have to come up with X number of dollars to match that. And that's where this whole comprehensive master plan process in the Parks and Recreation comes in, is that you can then look out and say, okay, fine, we're going to put $50,000 a year. In 10 years, we'll have $500,000 to make a major improvement at this location.
But I think your point is to take the money that we were spending on the electrical upgrade and use that as a match for a larger grant to do more things with it, which is ideal. I mean, that's the holy grail of grant writing.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, but we have electrical problems obviously right now to do that, but going forward.
But going forward,
Yeah, the strategy can be more complete.
So there is 15,000 for, in the budget, so. But, so to go to Linda's point here though, to the survey, but we're planning to do that because we're running short of time as far as doing it. Cleanup day is next Saturday, so whatever these survey questions are to be finalized and printed out, and I can hand them out when we check people in. We can plan to do a coupon in the summer tax bill that people can do a QR code. We're gonna have time to put this survey questionnaire on our website that people can fill out maybe or print and send in. And then also allow people that don't have computer capabilities in the tax bill thing to say, contact us and we'll get one to you, right? Is that the plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we're good with that item?
And I guess the only statement I would make, if you, as board members, have any specific comments or comments or changes on the specific questionnaire itself, if you just want to email it to me.
What's the deadline to get that to you?
We're gonna be meeting next Tuesday,
So which
so
one
I'm
do I,
hoping, not hoping, we will finalize this Tuesday.
which one do I look at? Do I look at what you gave us tonight
So
or?
This is
Those are
in
just
addition.
It's a combination of both.
Oh,
I can send a full
can
revision.
you send a final?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I can send a final.
all right, thank you. That'd be good.
And there was also a cover letter or cover introduction that was at the end. It probably should be at the front.
Oh, wasn't? Sorry.
In the packet, you mean? Or,
Yeah, I believe it was in your packet. If you scroll down all the way to the bottom of that survey.
Page 7.
It
Well,
says we want your input or whatever, so it's an explanation.
Oh, I see.
That needs to be worded, you know.
yeah, I see what you're saying, okay.
okay, can I share my screen now?
And I think you also said you wanted to have a closing date. That was on that last page too, Gary.
All right.
You know, you should, I don't think you need to give people a ton of time. I think 30 days is more than sufficient.
The shorter the better, they'll just,
30 days?
I would give 2 weeks,
Or-
whatever.
But you also need to get your information up on SurveyMonkey, so hopefully, I don't know, if you can do that quickly.
I mean, 30 days is gonna push the timeline even more.
Well,
Yeah.
and I don't necessarily think you need 30 days. I mean, if you're, Junkie is pretty popular. It'll be interesting. He's gonna keep.
But then the taxes don't go out until
They go
July
out,
1st.
they go out July 1, if you
So
give
that's
people
2
till,
weeks.
if you give people till July 31, you know, and that'll give you time to do,
Yeah.
Or maybe July 15, you guys can figure that out. Maybe
Yeah.
July 15 is reasonable.
Okay.
All
Which
right,
one are we doing first, Lossie?
yes, that was the first one.
Okay, so just as an overview, because I don't know who knows our properties and who doesn't, I just wanted to share some pictures and just kind of give a brief 2-minute explanation while I'm showing the, is it okay? While I'm showing the,
Can we make that full screen?
trying, hold on.
No, I mean,
It might not,
I don't know.
because the picture's too small, it probably won't. It's okay though.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so Lassie Road Nature Trail is a 1.77 mile nature walking trail starting from Cook Road to Skeetamog Point Road, or vice versa, because we have a small parking lot area on both sides, through an old road easement that was relinquished from the county to our township years ago. We've utilized this as a natural walking trail ever since, but unfortunately, vehicles have created further erosion, as well as higher water levels in the swampy areas that have especially affected the west end portion of the trail. As you know, we had secured funding for this project through ARPA grant money, which was reallocated to the fire truck, so this project is now unfunded. However, we have all of the engineering documents and request for proposal ready to be sent out. This is what is referred to as a shovel-ready project, which could be put forward to request a DNR grant. There is a neighboring property owner who have requested the ability to access their back properties on the east end of the trail, which the previous board did not support, but also did not ratify in any actionable decisions. Maintenance is required, such as lawn mowing, sometimes tree removal, and we noticed the kiosk sign on the Skeetamog Point Road has been damaged. This is a beautiful walking trail that has many animal, forestry, and wetland educational opportunities that we have hoped to create as an educational walking path for our youth and community learning. Just the other day, when Amber and I walked the trail, we heard many birds and frogs and saw deer, I'm gonna say this wrong, is it pileated? Woodpecker. And the grand finale was 2 bald eagles, which was on the corner of our BCNA property and the Lassie Trail property, and is most likely a nesting ground area for them. Another project we have evaluated is the connection between Lassie Road Nature Trail and our Battle Creek Natural Trail near the pond. This would create a very beautiful walking trail connection that would travel alongside Battle Creek, which would allow more accessibility to fishing potential. This is an extraordinary natural area full of potential that should be preserved for our community and our children's and grandchildren's future. So I know I wasn't in line with the pictures I just got the.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, they're both of them.
It's nice.
Oh, I didn't see the second.
I know, I didn't either until I put it up on the screen. The second one's right there.
Oh, yeah, I see the head.
It's down on the lower branch.
Bottom left, see the head.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. We didn't even see it when we first took the picture. We were like, there's two of them. So this is a screenshot just to kind of show a comparison, like the Battle Creek area is all of the shaded, the different color area. Where you see a lot of those X's on the lower section is where I took, on X Hunt, I was just marking spots as I went, or I was taking pictures, and so that's the Lassie Road Nature Trail. So you can see how it butts up, and it's specifically in one corner of it that it, in that lower left corner, that's where we saw the bald eagles, where it butts to the property. So any questions on the Lassie Trail and or any of these pictures that I have?
So, Joe,
Are you saying that this area is the Battle Creek
Yes.
area, and does the Lassie Trail start here or
It
there?
starts
Where
on
the
the
blue,
X that was all the way to the left.
so that's Cook Road? Or that is Cook Road?
That's Cook Road.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
and then it goes to, okay,
Cook Road all the way to Skeetamog Road.
okay.
so I think it would be, one thought I had, and I don't know if this is like, before I became elected to this board, I didn't even know we had that. I mean, this and Battle Creek, and I drove Angel Road all the time, didn't even know that parking area at Winnebago, I always say that wrong. I always say that wrong, but didn't even know that was ours. But that's a disconnect that I don't think residents really know the recreational facilities that we have, and my understanding is that the use of the Lassie Trail, not to discount it for anybody that loves it, but it's not heavily used because really probably a lot of people don't know about it. And because of some of the issues that you probably brought up, right? But,
There's also, just so you know, there's a big bear problem down there and there's a ton of bugs.
well, and I heard too
Like
that there was
fierce bugs,
somebody
especially.
trapping down there, be careful with your pets, I don't know.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Okay.
Lossy or Battle Creek? Where are you talking?
Lossy.
Lossy.
But so anyway, off the trail, but so I think it would be really, really nice to at some point, maybe as like a study session kind of thing, you call it, for the board to be able to actually go together. And I love what you did, and you did a great job putting this together. But I think it'd be great if we could all go on our facilities and do a walking tour to see what we have. I mean, I'll do it myself, Jill and I have talked about going out there,
I
but
think that'd be great.
I think as a board, and maybe as a group, that we should go and hike these trails and look at what we have and be able to see it firsthand.
We've done that as a board,
Right, yeah.
but yeah, it would be great to get.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that as a board to do that, you know, I mean, we need to go out and we need to view things, you know, and be able to talk about things.
And in lieu of doing that, that was my hopes of just showing.
No, but
these
this was
pictures.
really, yeah, but this was really good, you know, I mean, you did a good job.
So I have a question, can you tell me what engineering has been done so far on this whole project? I mean, what plans exist,
Yeah, we have a whole set of plans, drawings, it's been paid for.
what was the cost of that?
Well, so the engineering, the initial engineering has been paid for, I should say. So once a project is put out for bid, an engineer actually has to bid on it to get the full project, right? So that portion, I think, was another $25,000 if I remember correctly. So essentially, we've got a drawing, we've got specs, we've got an RFP.
When you say RFP, what do you mean by that?
Request for engineering proposals.
I know what that stands for, but what's the?
Request for bidders to bid on the engineering and the construction portion of the project.
Well,
Engineering
usually you have
and-
the engineering
yeah,
done first and then you
And,
quote the construction.
right, and we,
It's more of an
So I'm
overview,
confused.
the engineering that was done so far, it's not,
So you're
it was
saying
a preliminary.
there's
It's
not enough
preliminary.
details?
right,
Okay, so let me back up, is there a bid document that is ready to go out to?
No,
So on.
Kevin never put together the actual bid document. That was the next phase of his work, which he was never engaged to do.
I'm showing
We have-
$6,240 was spent for
So
the
far.
engineering so far.
Okay.
Sounds about right.
So you're saying that you need another amount of work done to have a full set of specifications and drawings and requirements so you can quote construction? Is that what you're saying here?
My understanding is Kevin next, or we, at this point, we engage with a engineering firm to do the preliminary work. At this point, we now have to
She's
go out
given
to
us
get
a
that next phase, and it might be the same engineer, it might be a different engineer. To actually go out and develop the,
They actually have a plans that can be bid by a contractor.
and we're very close. The job, there are details on the bridge, and there was a means to fill in the low spots. It's a relatively simple project, okay, in the sense that next phase is, there's not a lot of engineering to be done on it. It's just putting together that bid package and then dealing with the contractors
And dealing with the Eagle,
and Eagle permit as well.
yeah. And specifically with Eagle, because there was
There's wetlands here,
just, I'm sorry,
there's wetlands here, obviously.
Right,
correct.
yeah,
So wetland mitigation has to be reviewed, right? And there's also there was different opinions on how deep the coring, is that the correct word? To determine how deep your posts need to go in the ground for your bridge. So things like there was detail, and I'm not an engineer in this respect, so I'm probably slaughtering the terminology on it, but essentially there was some engineers who, gave us options, right? Actually, both engineers gave us options, because you don't know until you know. You don't know until you get into the nitty-gritty of really the engineering. So that was the next stage, is to really fundamentally hire that, to get to the true scope, the depth of the specifications, that could then go to the construction phase.
So they didn't do any boring yet to determine
No.
soil conditions?
No.
I was at the walkthrough with the conservation department and also the engineer, and when we looked at the bridge. And so long as it wasn't going to be used to traverse vehicles across the creek, the thought is that we would not have to go to that extent of engineering. I mean, this is a walking bridge that would be 5 foot wide for ADA compliance, but not a structural bridge to hold heavy equipment.
Well, thus the ban on vehicles on the trail,
Right.
right? So,
I think the only concern was if somebody did get hurt back there, they wanted to be able to get like a
like a
four-wheeler.
boat,
But they could access from either end,
Either end, which is true, yeah.
depending on where they're at.
Or snowmobiles, yeah.
So,
I was one way, shape, or form, yeah.
so the gap between where we are now and being able to have plans out to bid, the cost of that is about how much, do you have any idea?
I don't recall, but that whole package could be supplied to the board. I mean, we were on track to do that last year.
what did we have,
A year ago.
173,000?
Correct.
ARPA money, right?
Right.
Something like
That
that?
was engineering and construction.
That was everything.
That was it, yeah, that was everything.
All of it, yeah. I'm just trying to understand I mean,
So
obviously, we had to
ultimately, the
move
next
fast to
step-
get the ARPA money spent and not lost. So,
3 years ago, whenever we started the process with the engineering firm, we had some high-level estimates, and at that time, the preliminary was right around that 5,000, and the additional was anywhere between 25 and like 45,000, somewhere in there.
And that would be project management, just like
Yes,
mechanical, electrical,
correct.
manage the project, bidders, everything.
Putting out the.
Okay.
And a lot of it depended on how many borings they had to do, or if they had to do any, too.
Correct, there was options, right, so there was,
So that drastically changed the price of the engineering, depending on what they had to do for that.
Just
Were
because
the
of
borings to anchor the bridge, or was this for some
Well, we weren't sure at the
elevated
time
or-
whether it had to be, whether it had to be passable for vehicles or not.
On my deer hunting property, we used pallets.
Right.
but it also had to do with, you gotta understand.
It's built on a couple telephone poles
You
right
need to
now.
go see this river, it's pretty
This thing.
Yeah, the creek is, it is a pretty wide, and you gotta look at the floodplain, right? And the depth
Right.
of all of that stuff, that's what the engineers really have to evaluate. And until they did that, we really didn't know. We were given options, and that's all we had to
Did
go
you
by.
were you ever able to discover how old that bridge is?
I don't know, Amber.
It bounces great.
It's held up though, it really does.
So one
Yeah.
So she
question.
just dropped a couple poles and put some slats on it?
So this year,
22-foot poles for 3.
there's been a big concern area-wide about ticks. And I've heard that, that the grasses can be tall there on the trail, and that there's a lot of ticks, when people are concerned about walking down it. And I don't know, is that something that can be sprayed for? Has that been, we hired, I believe we signed a contract with the Conservation District. I don't know if they've done any mowing yet, or they call it brush hogging at the beginning, or the whatever.
I hope they did it.
But I don't know if they've done that yet,
I
but
didn't get to, I
You
So-
were just down there, right?
They didn't, lastly, they didn't, but we took that walk prior to Memorial, right?
Was it last week?
Was
I don't
it last
have a
week?
planner.
Could have been last week.
No, it was maybe.
you want.
well, no, I just wanna say, we need to contact them.
We can ask them if they can
and,
do a deer,
the thing to keep that down though is to keep the
Demarcation.
grass mowed.
Well,
Correct.
that's not, the contract is,
No, but they're
Only
supposed to
a
do it a
few
couple, 3
mowings.
times,
Yeah,
but
2,
in the
3
spring it
times.
grows the longest, but,
right.
so anyway, I just wonder if it's been done, but.
Well, and I know the county just started doing their mowing.
We were down this weekend.
May 29th.
Oh, so that's not too long. It's just last week. So, Yeah, I'm not sure that you,
I would call that
you could
right.
possibly have enough spray to do that. I don't think
They're
it's even possible.
everywhere. I mean,
Well,
it's
not
just
only that,
like-
so, whatever, we can ask the conservation district if you guys wanna see if it's even an option. I don't see, I think keeping the
Mowing
grass
is the best.
low is your best,
Yes.
really course of
I-
Well,
action.
and you need that too for the automobiles that have really gotten out of control the last few years.
For sure.
All right, so why don't we move on to Battle Creek?
Okay, Battle Creek.
Oh, and just that damaged sign that you showed,
Mhm.
can our rangers fix that? I mean, can't that be a
I'm sure,
thing?
yeah,
I'm sure they could.
I'm sure they
They're
could.
simple signs.
Just talk
Yeah.
to Tom and,
Yeah.
So is the damage sign on the Skigman Point side?
actually Tom's hearing me right now.
Skigmog Point side, yes. Yes, it is on the Skigmog Point Road side.
One of the things that Lassie Road is not that appealing for, it is called a down and back, unless you stage 2 vehicles. When you talk about it, and we're gonna get into Battle Creek, from a popularity standpoint, no one wants to go out and then come back on the same route, so that there's a little shortcoming in that. In Battle Creek,
And I'll mention
I
that.
was gonna mention that.
It's a long walk.
It's a long walk.
Yeah, let me tell you.
It is a lot.
So, Battle Creek Natural Area is a 255-acre parcel located off Skigmog Point Road, just north of the Lawsuit Trail that we just discussed. This land acquisition was done through the help of the Land Conservancy and the grant funds from the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund, which helped us develop a management plan listed in our rec plan. This is a very unique property that has water frontage on Elk Lake itself and has the Battle Creek running through it. We have updated this trail system with some signage and back in 2021, when my son Devin volunteered to add 2 benches, one that overlooks the pond and one that overlooks an open field where many times deer can be found grazing. This property has a natural walking trail currently that has a higher maintenance cost associated, such as mowing the trail and tree removal sometimes, and it does not connect in a loop style, as Gary just mentioned. It dead ends after you go around the pond area into the open field. One of our potential projects we've evaluated was to create a more sustainable walking trail system with the help of the Land Conservancy and to create it as a loop, which would be more advantageous to many walkers. This natural area butts to the Lossy Road Trail, and as I stated before, we had hopes of making a connector trail system to make this even more desirable. Lastly, we have a project potential to create a connector off this trail to reach the beach location, which had been destroyed from the 2015 storm. Again, this is an extraordinary natural area full of potential that should be preserved for our community and our children's and grandchildren's future to enjoy.
So can you go back to that last map that you just, show me the boundary, is that whole
This
area?
is just a portion of it.
Okay,
So literally, I was on my boat and I thought, well, I had took these pictures, I'll show where I was taking these pictures, and this blue dot is
where you were?
me,
Oh, okay,
and this is the area that beach is located.
you're in the stumps.
It's right off the end of Miami Beach.
Yeah.
Which is out.
So that was just for visuality. Now, I will show you the map.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge,
But the original Boy Scout trail went to the far, it was much further to the east.
now why do you
It
call
wasn't
it,
on the
why do
Miami
you call it
Beach
the Boy
end.
Scout Trail?
Because originally, the trail through the woods that goes to the Boy Scout bench that is on the south end of Elk Lake right there, there's a bench with the Boy Scouts,
Okay,
and it's
all
still
right.
there.
Yeah,
One of their
They
Eagle
put
Eagle
a-
Scout project?
Yes,
they
it
put a
was.
trail through
Yes,
there,
it
yeah.
was.
Okay,
There was a trail, but the big storm in 2015, trashed that out beyond.
it wasn't a Boy
Ability
Scout
to
camp
clear
or
it.
anything?
No.
No,
okay.
they just put in a trail and a bench.
Okay,
So these are just a visual because it was easy for me. These are kind of my pictures over the years. This is the big, oh, you can't see my cursor.
Kinda can.
Yeah. So this is the beginning of the Battle Creek. Currently, it goes down, it loops, there is a Y trail and it just kind of stops because, again, the storm disconnected the ability to get to the beach. This is where one bench is located in that Y. And then it comes around the pond and it just pretty much stops in this field. So the connection piece, really, we were looking to do would be about that. And then to make this a loop, and then the connector is this other blue line too. The red line depicts, generally speaking, the Lossy Trail.
So the connector is not there.
No, this connector is not
And
there.
then is there parking?
There is parking here,
Okay.
and then there's, again, parking on each side of,
Do we know?
There's really no parking on the east side, that's just your parking on the road, right?
No, you,
The west side, you can.
up here, there's a
On the-
parking lot here, up here at the top.
I know that,
Lossy.
I'm talking at Lossy, I didn't think there was parking.
there is room for 2 and maybe 3 vehicles to park alongside the road. It goes in deeper than just the 10-foot, what do you call it, easement.
So what do you mean that you can't get to the beach anymore, just because of down trees?
Yeah, remember
So-
when we had those straight line winds that
Right.
stormed the one
An
year?
abundant amount,
Like there was a
a
lot.
lot.
Think pixie sticks.
Right.
They were just all tipped over.
But we
So-
can't just go in there and,
Get through there.
Well,
Not-
so,
Not today, because it would be designated as a wetland, it would have to be a boardwalk.
really? Huh.
Is there any potential for a trail to be made anywhere else to get
And
to
this would
the
also have to be a boardwalk as well, because
Park.
and we looked at that, from the Land Conservancy, Steve was out. It would be a boardwalk, because it would be determined as a wetland, and you cannot, bring fill into it, or you end up having to compensate that wetland somewhere else.
Right.
And I can tell you right now, boardwalk is about $95 a foot.
A foot?
A foot.
Oh my
How'd the
gosh.
Boy Scouts-
I mean, to go
how'd the
back.
Boy Scouts
A good quality, when I say a long-term, that's Grass River's boardwalk right now, that's what they
You
just,
said all that would have to be boardwalk?
yeah, well, the majority of it would be. Anywhere there's, standing water, why?
That's crazy.
Gary,
Yeah.
didn't you guys get a grant though for Grass River for
Oh, yeah.
quite a bit of that?
Yeah.
So, from the DNR?
Yes.
Zip line.
There's a trust, there's also, the passport,
So there's ways to do it.
there's ways to do it, right?
There's also a really great park right up in Sutton's Bay that I visited a few times, and I think I brought the information back to the PRAC where they use former dock sections.
Oh, I remember you bringing that.
And they literally were able to level it up and set them on like 6x6 timbers and just,
People are always on the dock
and they got
sections.
volunteer groups to put it.
So do we know, oops, I'm sorry, can you go back to that map real quick?
Oh, yeah.
Do we have a measurement for, like, how long would this be? And you said it,
Yes, there is an estimate on that already.
do you remember?
I could.
And then about how long would that be to finish that loop?
We've got some drawings that.
Yeah, there's drawings on all this and cost estimate. And Mel, there is an issue here in that there is a private property that goes through there, so we would have to obtain an easement to get from this point back to the parking lot. As you turn in the parking lot there's a residence that goes straight
I remember that, yeah.
up in here, so that would have to be negotiated. Also, the slope up in here would require a retaining wall. So that it became a little bit costly that way.
Wasn't there also an option though to switch back?
Yes, there was also what we call a lollipop. Okay, so you'd come in, you'd take the trail down, you would follow on the south side of the creek or that low-lying area, cross over and then come back and then
It'd probably be a lot cheaper.
Yeah, without having to-
So this is clearly a DNR grant project, if we ever get one.
Well, not
I mean,
necessarily, when I was talking to the Land Conservancy guy, he, number one, they build trails that are more sustainable. What we have now goes through areas that, again, need mowing, is open to the sky. and it's also visible to that property that Gary was mentioning. So to make it more sustainable, you know, he would transition and go more into the wooded pathways, and it would create it so that it's, first of all, pretty and it's shaded, and you're not gonna have the grass growth like you do now. And he was, you know, talking with the, you know, seeds is one of them, the youth, the cost was not outrageous, I'll just say it like that. To do a project like that, to cut in a trail system like that. You talk about boardwalks and you talk about wetlands
Retaining walls.
and retaining walls, and that certainly gets to the pricier point.
I think the lollipop was about $110,000, and that was utilizing seeds or youth corps. Would have been coordinated through the Conservancy. So that pricing wise, it would be, you know, cutting the trail, which Conservancy does all the time.
Is there no other option to get to Elk Lake except the one that is all blocked now? Like you couldn't make another trail this way, or is it all trees?
It's all pretty much wetland.
It's a huge wetland,
It's a huge wetland.
especially because the flow of the Battle Creek has been interrupted, and now I don't know, if you have a different GIS picture, I think you had one earlier, there's a large pond that didn't really used to be there 30 years ago.
There's a
and-
dam that didn't used to be there.
Right, well,
Essentially.
it's the sand filled in, and there's a lot of debate whether there were beavers there or not, but yeah, that big body of water didn't really used to be there, and there has been a lot of beaver activity
They're
along
not
that
all
shore
out there anymore.
all the time. Yeah, there's multiple outlets.
Never really knew that with them. So like your document here, you're showing these conceptual estimates, I suppose, but it doesn't appear to me, other than $15,000, you were looking to get any grant funding, and something like this, I would think, you know, $117,000 for the township would be a lot. And that's where you were talking about leveraging your money, right, to do more. And this to me looks like one of those attractive projects for like a DNR type of grant to me. Just to get people outside into the nature and whatever. I think it would be very appealing to write a grant for something like this. I really do. I think they'd go for it.
I think the question is which grant to go after with this. And
Right.
that's where you have to do some strategizing in terms of, you know, how to match the priorities of each of the programs to what they want to fund, so.
Maybe it could be multiple grants, maybe you could go to the DNR, maybe you could go to other sources also.
Well, yeah, sure.
You know, you guys might wanna also try and figure out if you could maybe start collecting some trail user data, like if you could even have a sign-in sheet or something like that. I drive past the Cook Road parking area every day, and there's an occasional car there, but it's not real heavily used.
Well, I think what he said, I don't think many people know it's there.
Yeah.
Same thing with Battle Creek, I don't think many people know about it either.
But if you could, that's what, the reason I'm saying, you know, Randy, the DNR, or, you know, I don't think Lassie Trail would be as much of an appeal because it doesn't go to water. But this definitely, you know, she just showed me the entire beach area that we own. You know, that potentially, not all of it obviously, but you could create another access to Elk Lake, walking access, but at least it would still be access, and I think that would really be.
I mean, Lossie could be part of it if they were connected.
Yeah, that's what these.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how likely is
Right, the
that
connector.
to do a
Lossie comes
connector
right
between
through
Lossie
here,
and
Right on
Battle
the,
Creek?
it comes right through like.
What is the
floods
distance?
Right through here.
Yeah, how far apart?
So you could connect and.
We could do
I
like
would guess
400,
yeah.
500 feet.
500.
To park, you know, park multiple cars to
Not
come
much.
in.
Yeah.
And then do a, you know what I mean, do a different way.
Okay, I think we're kind of running out of time. Is there any last minute questions, concerns, comments about BCA? Okay, what's next on the agenda?
Whitewater Township, or Whitewater Park Campground.
Okay, and I'm gonna preface, well, let me just read what I wrote first. By the way, these pictures are not in any particular order, they're in order by date, so I couldn't rearrange things to my liking, so just keep that in mind. I wouldn't normally start out with, winter. Whitewater Township Campground Overview, okay. Our Whitewater Township Park, as many of you know, is our local campground facility, but it is much more. This property is not only a huge asset to our township because of its beauty, natural environment, income base, but also for its future potential. Currently, it has capacity for 55 sites for tents or RVs, but limited in its electrical capacity, which is one of the projects the board has put out for RFP recently. This property also has a boat launch, a beach, a pavilion, volleyball court, a natural walking trail that also is fantastic for snowshoeing. That's those first pictures. We had recently revised the mapping of the trail system, upgraded and expanded the boat launch, and had moved a very outdated playground area from the lower beach area and created a new one up by the bathhouse a few years ago. Another potential project we had previously been approved for was the upgrade of adding toddler equipment to the playground area, since currently it only allows for older kids' age play equipment. Other upgrade projects that have been evaluated is upgrading and or possibly moving the beach area, a new pavilion, a new ranger station, a new toilet for the boat launch area. There, of course, is maintenance items that have to be done on a regular basis, like mowing, weeding, even the playground area has to be weeded, and the trail systems, fixing of the fences, etc. Many of the park projects over the years have been handled directly by the board and or the park administrator. And many times the PRAC was not included in discussions or asked to get involved on these. So, any questions?
Comment.
Comment.
You are now. So, we, this year in the budget process, we combined the recreation, which primarily it seems like you were more focused on High Prairie Park and the trails. And not as much on the campground, other than the playground equipment, right? But
We
so
were
I
basically told to stay out of it.
it. But now we have one fund, it's the Park and Recreation Fund. And we have talked about and wanted to encourage the leadership, whoever that may be at the parks, whether it be a lead ranger or a park manager or an administrator, whatever it ends up being, to be more involved in PRAC. And I know that that's been your desire as well, to not have that disconnect that's been there. Because we don't want to see the crown jewel being ignored either. And it has been a bit, so.
So I have some questions too. So I see a whole list of projects here. Where did all these come from? I mean, where did this list of projects?
Our capital improvement projects list has had many of these listed for the last two go-arounds that I've
When
been.
you say capital improvement, what are you talking about?
From our five-year rec plan.
The 5-year rec plan had all of these projects in?
What are you looking at, Randy?
I guess I'd have to.
Oh, the handout that you gave us, that
21.
has $1 million worth of, page,
17.
oh, sorry, 17.
Oh,
So I see, I mean, volleyball courts, ranger stations,
Oh, I see.
permanent camping, all that stuff, it's like, all kinds of good things here. Asphalt surface, I guess I don't disagree with any of it. I think the park has huge potential that is untapped. I guess I'm wondering if these projects bubbled up from over the years. Is there a long-term vision and plan for the park in terms of build-out? I keep hearing that there's room to expand the park with more campsites or improve the campsites we have with better layouts and so forth. Is that, I guess what I'm wondering is there, maybe Gary can answer this, is there a long-term vision for the park in terms of a graphical illustration of what's here and what we're gonna build?
Not at this point. I think that from the survey and the new rec plan is gonna drive what we would look at, what is the best return on investment for this community. I have some concepts in my mind that I put to paper, okay, but those are just dreams. And those dreams have to be substantiated by professionals. So that we would have, at some point, real numbers, not Gary's numbers, real numbers to say, okay, fine, what is a new pavilion going to cost?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm getting at, is the need for that vision for the park that is based in some engineering and based in some aspirational aspect of what this park can be. I mean,
You suggested that we
I'm getting to that.
understand the master plan.
Well, yeah, a master plan for the site, and as I mentioned, in my private life, I worked with other friends, one of which I reached out to before this meeting to say they did the master planning for Wilderness State Park up in, and so they did with DNR exactly what we're looking at here, which is building out a whole series of improvements over the next 5 to 10 years. And they offered, if we wanted to take a trip with them and show what's been done and how it was done, and work with DNR. And I mean, it's a state park, it's a little bit different, but it's similar in a lot of ways. So I throw that all out there, because I think what's lacking in my mind is this master plan for the park that gives us a picture of what we're building towards, as opposed to, trying to get people excited over native flower plantings. I mean, that's nice, but by itself, I'm not sure that generates the kind of enthusiasm we would like to see. If you combine that with, we're improving this whole area, we're moving the ranger station, we're having a new primitive campsite over here, you kind of see how things relate to each other. And you know this, Gary, from your work and how, that master plan can be inspirational and help complete the picture rather than seeing a list of projects which are isolated things.
So it sounds like you want us to be more involved with the campground, correct?
I personally do, I guess, as long as it's in the context of building a future vision for this park, and it's that we're looking past individual projects and looking towards, are we just putting bricks on a wall, or are we building a cathedral? I think we want to build a cathedral here.
Yeah, I think just like being able to follow, and that was the reason, I know it was a really big file, but I attached that information on the capital improvement plan. It's the same information that we talked about with the planning commission, is that you have to get to the point of that overall plan and then prioritizing those projects. What's the right order to do those things in, and making sure that you tend to things timely. And I'm just gonna use a few examples. Like the pit toilets that had yellow caution tape for about 8 years. That does not make us look good.
No, that was what it is.
And actually, the prior board made arrangements for the demoing of that. We followed through with the finalization of it. But thank God, one of the last things they did was finally got those demoed out of there. And so trying to make sure you tend to things and that you do a legitimate, disciplined, objective project prioritization that helps you stage what is the proper order to do these things and what is the explicit benefit to the community of each of those things. Because there's oodles of projects. The big trick is how do you prioritize them and time them appropriately. Like, you don't buy assets before you have infrastructure. It's a waste of money. You just have a depreciating asset.
The best example is the trailer toilet.
Yeah, that's my favorite example.
Where
You don't buy a toilet trailer when you don't have a plan for how to clean it out and, power it properly. And
move it around.
and move it around, when the answer that was given was, we'll tow it to the dump station. No, I don't think so. And so.
But if we could put that money into the new facility where we know it's gonna go and where it's gonna go for the next 50 years.
And is it necessary, when you think about just an example to expand that further, lots of parks have perfectly sufficient porta potties that are maintained by the owner of the company weekly. And so it's a very small cost to provide a facility to people to use versus, investing almost $70,000 in something that you still don't have your infrastructure.
Well, it was tied to a recreation plan that didn't exist.
Well, yeah, that's
So
true, it wasn't
the
in your
asset was
plan
bought
either.
before we had the plan, but.
Well, again, and
So-
that goes to the disconnect, right?
That's what I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
So the
Because
question
that
was asked,
campground was never really.
so Amanda said, do you want us to be more involved with Whitewater Township Park Campground? And the answer is yes, but not in a vacuum. And what I mean by that is, don't just come together as a group and say, oh, we think we should do this and do that, and not being cognizant of the budget, the funds that we actually have. We'd all like to do everything right, but we only have so much money, and we're invited into the budget discussions this year, and this is what we have. But to work with, and that's one thing that's been a disconnect, work with the park staff about the priorities at the park. What's more important right now, beach sand, a ranger station, or a toilet trailer? And really help set the priorities, which you will end up ultimately doing when we go through the planning commission process with the 6-year capital improvement plan. The park and rec is gonna be a very big part of that. You're gonna have your own department within that plan. And you're gonna have help in setting the priorities from the planning commission and from the board, which I think should then give you that direction maybe you've been looking for a little bit. So
it should be a sequencing thing, I guess is what we're saying too. And one other thing too, I guess, apart from the bricks and mortar thing, I know this is, I don't wanna pile too much stuff on here, but can you think about the programming aspects of things too? I mean, in terms of, you've got opportunities for community events at the park. You could have where the volleyball court is, couldn't that be a place where there's some concerts or things?
I'm not disagreeing with you, Randy, and we've talked as a PRAC committee, we've talked about a lot of programs in the baseball field. Do you know how many leagues we could invite in and have, but here's the deal. You have to have a program administrator. You have to have someone on staff who is able to do those events, who's able to coordinate we can have ideas and we would love to share ideas, that's not the problem, but as the PRAC, we're limited unfortunately in our abilities to go forward
I
and
agree, I
make
mean, I
those.
kind of hesitate to say that actually, but it seems to me that that's such a jewel for this whole area, and you correct me.
I'm not disagreeing, I think it'd be
For the
wonderful.
whole.
I think it'd be great too, I just don't know who to have.
Yeah,
do it.
but I mean,
So could it be though,
maybe reaching out beyond the PRAC to other people to.
Yeah.
could it be an administrator kind of a position that maybe somebody we already have on staff, I don't know, or maybe in advance kind of a responsibility for a lead ranger or someone to coordinate. We need a coordinator.
Yeah.
They can
essentially,
coordinate
that's what it
tournaments,
is.
they can coordinate the,
5Ks are a big thing, they're a big moneymaker too, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be for free, I mean, we could find ways to make money.
But
Food
yeah,
trucks
right.
and concerts
It
and.
takes time and but
I'm relatively new to the area. When we took the tour of the park last summer, Brandon made a comment as to he camps with his family. And what that potential park could be in the way that programming becomes part of that experience. It's just not hook your trailer in, spend the night and move on, or head somewhere else.
No,
Brandon
go to
was-
parks where they have activities for the
And
kids.
when I was a kid,
culture.
I hate to say this, when I was a kid, I used to camp all the time at Whitewater, and they did have programs.
They did,
Yeah,
Okay.
and Mike's comment that we don't have children coming to the park, again, disconnect because I'm not there every day, right? But in my brain, I'm thinking to myself,
chicken and egg, right?
why? That's fundamentally what we did, that was a huge resource, right? For families locally to go on vacation and not spend vacation money, right? So.
Well, if you did that too, as you guys talk about the campground, one of the biggest things that Rise, and my son plays travel baseball. We camp and we go to big tournaments. You have two beautiful things here that could totally bring, as a vision farther down the road, that could bring in tons of money. You have a baseball field, potentially you could put a third, you could make tournaments.
Right.
It's a big moneymaker. And then you have a campsite that how many campgrounds do you know where you can bring a boat and get on a beautiful lake? Beach access, and like they're saying, if you have entertainment for the kids, even if it's movie night one night, or they do like glow things.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything
It doesn't,
super
yeah.
fancy.
Well,
But
and
it's like,
people
you know,
like
they
the
do those
Halloween.
glow
thing.
nights
They
and
use-
stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, like-
So an event coordinator like that would be spectacular, and if one of the rangers has that potential, I would say as a small stepping stone, to start looking at programs internally in the campground would be not that big of a shoot, and I think it could be obtainable. And maybe check their potentials, like, is this a person who likes to do this? Is this a success? Is this a full-time position going forward?
And I've heard too, we're doing the electrical for the ability to do a future expansion, but then I hear the comment, and I don't disagree with it, that, and this goes back to the master plan, when do you kickstart that? Because if you're not filling the campground now, why are you talking about an expansion? We're filling it on weekends, in July and, end of June, but, we're certainly not even close to what the Traverse City State Park is. They're full all week long, right, when they're open. But, so we're not at capacity, so I don't know why we would expand,
It was too,
Did it?
yes.
Is there any, has there been,
All the time.
All the time.
It used to be full all the time.
oh, yeah.
And I'd like to
Yeah.
know why it's not.
Is there any talk, has there ever been any talk about putting water access at those sites? I know sewer's probably astronomical and out of the question, but I mean, most
Oh, water
campgrounds
at
have
the
water.
Most
Yeah, I
do
mean,
now, yeah.
Well, and maybe that's a project like
Well,
Gary was talking about, start adding money and make one project, but make it really big, so you have that matching money
Yeah.
to bring in.
I really think the grant money would flow to clear projects from the state,
Right.
something like this.
I think we're just not asking.
And we're not planning either. I think we're really got the vision.
Yeah, like you said earlier, we come up with, the PRACs came up with ideas, and then we look at it and we're like, oh, we gotta get the grant turned in less than a month. How was that feasible? You'd have to start planning way in advance.
But the thing is, though, we all have this vision, which I think is great, then we need to start, okay, the first vision is obviously the electrical, and then maybe the beach, and then start going out and getting those drawings done, and then we have to go after the grant money, now that we have the drawings and the engineering drawings. We have to obviously get all that laid out in order to do those DNR grants, because you need all that.
I think it would start with a master plan for the park, and then you could say, let's pick off this piece with this grant, and this piece with this grant.
And we'd
and this piece
understand the
with this
sequencing too, right?
Yeah, right.
So if you're trying to create some critical mass here, then you
Yeah.
put a lot of money here, get this developed and,
I mean, at least it gives you a vision of the overall goal in the end, so you have,
And maybe there's primitive camping in there, I think that was on your list, some primitive
Yeah.
camping, that wouldn't.
There
cost
definitely could
anything.
We get that all the time, that's a big question with Pal Antrim. Is there anywhere to camp on
Okay, so
Shale
that,
Lakes?
you're just giving them a piece of dirt and a picnic table, right?
I mean, literally that whole space down by
I like
the
that.
kayak, where we want to put a kayak launch,
Yeah.
is,
Okay.
that whole open area would be great for a primitive area, for a kayaking event like that, or just primitive area.
Couldn't cost that
Camping.
much,
But-
that.
And I think when you talk about master plan, it begins with that list of what we think is important for the park, and then you juxtapose everything based on what is the, best return on investment. How many people are we serving, and then from there, then you figure out, well, we can do that over there, we can do that over there, we can expand over here, we can do this. It's that list of items and how they're then positioned to say,
Priorities.
this is the priority.
I mean, primitive, just, some of them I've seen is just literally you come to the end of the road and there's a parking
There's a
area
piece of dirt.
with a trail off into the primitive campsites with a fire ring in
Fire
each
ring
one.
and a picnic table, there you go.
Yeah.
$50 please.
Maybe it's mowed. All right, anything further on Whitewater?
I mean, there's a lot more room there than what we're
I
utilizing
know,
now.
I'd like to see a map that shows the areas that are good potential expansion areas. Not that we do that right away, but, we're talking about electrical, I guess, are we gonna look at future areas to serve with electrical? Do you wanna build a system so we can add on to it?
Yeah, there's
I don't even know what your electrical,
there's room to the
What your
north and to the west.
what the RFP that you guys put out, I tried to go to the website to go to the link and there was no linkable link, if that makes sense. So I couldn't even figure out what exactly you guys were putting out for scope.
So what they're doing is basically taking half the load off the current system and dropping in a new transformer. I probably don't have all the right electrical terms, but basically taking half the load off the existing system because it's overtaxed. And building, these 1-2 loops will be replaced and they will be to current requirements for electrical. Cause that's the other thing, I think when we figure out, we only have like 4 50 amp sites currently, which does not handle most people's rigs these days. And that's why there's a problem.
Yeah.
And so that is the proposal to do that. It also includes providing power to the relocated ranger station, which needs to get, it got pushed out of the way for the construction, now it needs to get put back by the entrance of the park right there, where you have like the boat watch on one side and the camping on the other.
So they're only redoing the power to half the campsites?
Yes.
2 loops,
2 of the 4
Yeah.
loops.
disconnecting them from the other
Gotcha.
side. Yeah, consumers said they would never they would never approve the design for what we have right now in
Yeah,
today's standards.
it's way out of date.
So,
So is what we're getting, the new stuff, is it expandable at all, or is it
Yes.
just taking care of what we have?
we can expand from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like
So-
without adding any more trends, but,
Well, no, they would add more as you expand, but
Okay.
off the same thing that we're building right now.
okay,
You'd be able to expand off what we're doing right now
Okay.
and leave the other 3 the way they are. So then we should be okay. But yeah, right now, I mean, really hot days, we didn't experience it last summer, but there's a box fan in, with the transformer, and they have to turn that on really hot days when we're full capacity at the park. People are having power issues there,
A
so.
residential box fan.
wow.
And I did test the fan a couple days ago and it does work,
Still rotates.
so.
I have one last comment on Whitewater, then we can move on, is just, you guys brought up some things that were interesting about the history and stuff, and I mean, that is something that the PRAC could also help us with as a board, is to just study some of the other campgrounds that are similar to us and see what kind of programming they have, and what's working well for them, what's not working well for them, and what kind of occupancy they have to try and understand,
I mean, you got a great example, Timber Ridge, right on the other side of Traverse. There's a huge amount of people that camp there.
Yeah, but
For ridiculous money, I might add.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But they got a lot
but they
of-
have everything
They do.
going on. They have
They do.
candy cannons that are shot every night. They have movies on an outdoor
Yep.
theater. They have a fishing pond. They have a pool. They have, what do they call that court where they do the disco ball and you play, it's like volleyball.
they got like a
But it's
mountain
like volleyball. I
pad.
mean, they have stuff going on 24/7, and they have a lodge that on rainy days the kids can go in the lodge.
Well, they're like a great wolf
Programming.
lodge.
There,
outdoors.
it was, yeah, we camped there a lot.
I mean, it's
because we're
not, it's
little
way
and-
over the top, but it's,
It's way over the top,
But you could
because we're
certainly
on
get
sugar
ideas.
highs the entire time,
Yeah.
always,
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
But,
it's certainly good ideas from.
One of the questions I would ask is, has
Yeah.
the township ever surveyed the campers? What do they want? What would they be interested in?
That's a good question, you guys could come up with a survey to.
do we have any,
We've talked
do we have
about that.
access to mailing lists from, or like addresses
Well,
and stuff for
through
people that make the
Rubber Pass.
reservations?
Through Rubber Pass, I'm sure we could set something up in Rubber Pass that would, after their visit, they could take a
Do a
survey
little survey,
if they want
that's a
to.
good idea.
That's what we've talked about in the
Yeah.
past, but it never came to.
We would have to talk to Rubber Pass and see if that's something they could offer,
But are you only getting a certain group of people that come to that campsite, because like you're
Or you're
saying,
getting the people that came.
well, correct, but I'm saying if we wanna improve it, and we're not getting children and we wanna bring in more families, we also need to kind of branch out to see what everybody else is doing to bring in more
Well, that
families.
could be part of the survey.
I can say we camp quite a bit, and usually state campgrounds don't have tons of activities, it's more the private places like Timber
Yeah.
Ridge, but state campgrounds, I mean, almost every campground we've ever been in, except my really rustic horse kind of stuff, they always have a host, a host camper that serves coffee in the morning. They usually have a board at their campsite that has, we're doing a hike, I mean, it's just simple things. We're doing a hike at 2, we're playing volleyball at 3, send your kids, it's just very simple things that don't cost any money, but it's, it's something. And it's just kind of nice. It's really nice to go talk to the rangers, have your cup of coffee with them in the morning, figure out, what's going on, where are the fish biting today, and, it's just kind of nice to have that resource when you're camping. Where's a good place to eat tonight? Just that type of thing.
We could get a food truck.
Yeah, we could have a food truck. Big thing.
We don't have a camp host now, right?
No.
Anymore?
Haven't for a long time, I think. But
It's been,
It hasn't been that long.
we've talked about
what, 5 years, 4 or 5 years, 5 years?
Yeah, they usually have like a little tent,
Yeah.
just like a little covered tent,
Yeah,
and they
those
do
pretty
their,
lights.
they just do their little coffee in there.
They used to be right across from the
Site 30.
ranger station there.
Site 30.
Sometimes they host bonfires at night and they'll supply with some more bakings, and just have, there might be 10 people that show up. It's not like the whole campground shows up, but.
Sounds
It's
like
kind of
you
fun.
would have some pretty good experience.
But that's the thing, though, like, those
It would be fun. I would love to
like
do
you're saying,
it.
like, they had a board for even kid activities, whether it's, volleyball or something, I don't know if there's a basketball court down there, but,
You could start out using what we
or
have.
just little entertainment things, like, we're gonna have s'more night, or maybe a movie, or popcorn, or.
I like what you said. You can start out by using what we have.
You could,
Yeah.
if you had someone to do
If
it.
you had
Yeah.
someone to start those events.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, because those are small things, right? Like, that would cost money. It costs someone having the idea.
We're playing Marco Polo in the
And
water
putting
at
it
2
in a
o'clock,
backboard.
and the kids would
But
be.
you know the fun thing is, though, you have a big, playground down there. Like, maybe one, on one of the nights, they could do like a treasure hunt in the sand. Find fun things in the sand that,
Or pull weeds.
All right. You're no fun, Tim.
I mean, I guess you could give them a Hershey Kiss for every weed they pull for you.
There you go.
Free labor.
All right, I think we need to move on to high grade.
Yeah.
All right, High Prairie overview. High Prairie Park is the reason that I decided to join the Park and Rec Committee in the first place, because of the deteriorated state of the baseball fields that was once thriving and widely used facility. There were no updates being made to High Prairie when my kids were in the Little League. So I saw a need to have someone in the committee who would recognize this and do something about it. The facility has 2 baseball diamonds, a covered batting cage, which by the way was my kid's project, never do that again. A playground, a very small pavilion, 1 very large basketball court, and 2 tennis courts that have been striped to be used as, for pickleball as well. Through many volunteering hours, we are in the process of upgrading the very old bleachers to the new metal bleachers. Currently, there are 3 bleachers assembled and the 4th one to go, along with all the fencing around the perimeters. We also completed cleanup of the front signage area flower bed, blowing leaves from the lower field dugouts, and weeding of the playground and inside of the back fencing. Areas that need to be improved most immediately is the cracking of the tennis courts needing to be completely resurfaced. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but as well as the basketball courts. Behind the fence line of the outfield is overgrown with weeds that continually hurt our fencing and need to be brush hogged back. The lower field has a very old shed, right there in that picture, that needs to be removed, and that is the location we would like to put the other bleacher. Other potential projects we have been evaluating is to do a paved walking trail around the perimeter and through the park, much like the Traverse City Civic Center does. Adding an additional playground area that is for younger kids, and have discussed things like a dog park or a water park play area for Amber. I am so excited and overjoyed to see over 250 Little League players now utilizing these facilities, along with their families and the community to enjoy as a whole. Any questions? Comments?
Somebody said there was poison ivy out there. Did I hear that?
In the back fence line, where they were pulling the weeds, she had mentioned to me that it looked like there was ivy starting.
Okay.
So we have a contract with True Green for that, and so I would say that if somebody can verify that or be more specific about where the problem is, we can certainly have them go out and take a look at treating that.
I thought Tom told me you guys cleared all that growth that was coming through the fence.
Yes,
Okay,
That
so
was
that's
huge.
gone, right?
Well,
Cut back
they cut out what was in the fence.
Correct.
There's still a lot behind the
on
fence.
on the field side as well.
that's what I'm saying, needs to
Not on
be
the field
brushed.
side, the back side of it, like on the tree side.
So if I go to that picture,
Yeah, because that was pretty bad.
If we could clear that out where they could mow around the back, both sides of the fence, then it wouldn't keep.
that's what I would like to go through with the farmer
So a home run
forestry.
ball is a lost ball right now.
Yeah.
A home run ball at this point is gonna be an adult slugger.
I know.
That's not true. I saw them last year doing in 7th grade.
Serious?
Serious. I saw 3 last year. I
So-
had 9 games.
So this is the fence line that we're talking about, and as you can see, it protrudes, this was the before the event, obviously. But behind it is, of course, where all the growth is stemming from, literally
And
stemming
that's
from.
where it just needs to be.
So
And
they
it
cut out
needs
what
to
was
be-
in the fence, but
Yeah, so step one is, let's cut it from the fence line so it's not coming out and poking kids and whatever. The next step is really, we need to get that growth behind it and killing it with the True Green service, great. Still think it needs to be hog brushed to really get the,
So the township doesn't own the bush hog. But maybe Brandon does or knows somebody. You know, other than that, you know, the Conservancy is using that kind of equipment on Lossy Trail. And, I mean, there's a possibility we could hire.
what I have would be too big for that. It would be,
Overkill.
yeah, and I don't know, I wouldn't feel comfortable.
Okay.
Cause I'd be afraid that I'd move a little bit and rip the fence down and grind that up with the brush.
Yeah, I mean, that was,
Wait a minute.
I mean, I think you need something smaller,
Here's another idea though, what about if we rented something?
that
You
could be
have
an
the
option,
trailer to pull it
yeah.
and help do it, or have a friend that could do it.
So.
I mean, I'm just a little concerned that if I call the Conservancy, it's kind of, I don't know if
It'd
I
be
get
worth
a reasonable
asking.
price or not.
here's the
They've
thing.
been reasonable on
Here's
stuff in the
the
past.
deal with the Conservation District.
That's what I meant to say. The
I know what you meant.
Conservation District is gonna be
Yeah,
at
the Grand Traverse Conservation District. The
Yeah.
thing with them is, they received funds for their equipment specifically through, I don't know what the terminology is, Michigan funds, to utilize to help local government agencies. When they come and do equipment, it's mostly you're paying for the labor. You're not really paying really the rental fee or the big equipment
Right.
fee because of that asset value. So they would by far be a better price point than calling and asking for.
I think recently they did jack their prices quite a bit this year for us, though. I think they increased them quite a bit, if I remember right.
Their labor rates increased, yeah.
But,
I mean, that really needs to be done to both fences, to both fields.
To both fields, without
yeah, if you guys could draw a cartoon of what that looks like,
And
I
here's the,
could call it.
and here's the thing, so if, well, I guess this doesn't show it depicted, but I mean, if we could cut back on each side of this fence line.
Are those white lines, fence lines?
No, these white lines are
Or is
our
that
future potential walking
walking
track, yeah.
so does a fence just go on the back,
Top side of the.
like these
Outside of
parts?
the green,
Okay, there's no fence here and here on the straight lines?
yeah,
Yes.
there is some,
That doesn't have the vegetation on it.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
really just those,
It's
Half
just around the
circles.
back.
okay.
And I had a thought while I was walking this, and I don't know if this is a dumb idea. This lower field, if it's really only gonna be Little League, it is a big, deep field.
Depends on
What
what
if-
you want for the future though.
Well, that's a very good point, right, talking about planning. But what if we kept this in line and created another fence? I can't see my cursor.
to make it a smaller field.
To make it a smaller field and create another fence line and use this for our walking pathway. That way you wouldn't have to go through and do all the vegetation removal through there.
just pie in the sky thought, so just.
But then you can't use it for tournaments.
Well, again, how do we want to use it in the future, right? And if that is something you want to use for future league, bigger kid leagues, it might have to be that deep. I don't
And
know.
I'm not sure, I just, you
It's
know,
a deep field though.
they're two big fields, you know, if you really wanted to like turn that into a multi-use park. You know how we were talking about like the basketball, the pickleball, you have an open lot there, you could technically even put a smaller field on. You could turn it into a big park tournament field area where it could turn over money. And
You're referring
go
to which area? Between the,
south side of the lower field,
the parking lot.
yes, you could,
Well, it goes
potentially,
all the way to the road.
It does.
Yeah.
right. I'm just saying, like, if you're trying to turn the parks into an investment piece. Where, you know, you could have like little leagues, tournaments at that time, you know, have whatever you wanted to do, if you wanted to make another tennis court, pickleball court, or whatever with the basketball court. But if you made these big enough, or with even the playground, maybe you could potentially bring in farmers markets for people, or you talked about yoga, you know, an area to have yoga in the park and.
I didn't talk about yoga.
There is something going on about yoga. Wendy, okay, I was like, but
Someone said.
if we wanted to turn this into an investment piece, you have to look at what's going to bring in money. I mean, we don't have soccer fields, we don't have the fields to do it. That is another big thing that brings in money. If you ever have another investment piece, soccer tournaments bring in a lot of
Would
money.
we want to
School
buy the
has-
property next door?
I don't think they're very underutilized
The soccer fields, they use it, well, they're on the playground.
right now, but they're there, we would use them.
Correct, I'm just saying like as investment pieces, like the campground, if you wanted to coincide and turn these into an investment for the township, for money to keep growing. And it's a great area where maybe someday that whole downtown could build up into something even more pretty with a business, you know, small restaurant, coffee shop, you know, putting the township hall down there or wherever you guys, you know, invested. And the nice thing is the casino is right there to work hand in hand with water and a trail system, a bike path maybe, you know, where people, if they wanted to stay at the casino, they could come right down or up at the campground, if there's ways to make bike paths. Horse trails.
Yeah, horse trails, not there, but maybe Battle
You
Creek.
got the old
Or
railroad that they
yeah.
don't use that could be converted to a bike path, maybe.
Where, so that property that, well, there's the two properties, but the one that's smack dab in the middle of the park, High Prairie Park, is that anything that is on our master plan or in this 6-year plan that they're talking about doing, that we would ever have money available in the event that ever became for sale? Yeah, I mean, that one in particular, but.
Property you're talking about, the one that's kind of kitty corner to the post office.
Well, I'm talking about that one. I mean, it's like right in the middle of the park, and boy, if that ever went up for sale, wouldn't we wanna snap that
So
up?
I just recently became aware that we own that, I didn't know.
The private property or the one to
It's owned by the
to
township.
the west of it?
I'm talking about this private property right here.
Oh,
Isn't
private.
yeah, so like, is there anything in our master plan?
Oh.
Like, if that ever came up for sale, if it went on up for sale tomorrow, what would we do? I mean, wouldn't we want
We
to?
talked about that, along with that plan in terms of redevelopment of the whole old M72 corridor, to be more of a downtown feel with the coffee shops and have conversations about potentially some housing in there as well, and housing, kind of rewriting, there's work to do on the zoning ordinance to make all that permissible. But,
And budget-wise, like, how would we finance that or purchase it?
well, I mean, I think you wanna drive private development with it, for one thing, I mean, rather than make that available for public purchase. I guess maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're saying.
Well, is it zoned properly that it could have the vision that you have in the master plan?
Yeah, I guess I'm hoping that that's privately developed along M72.
Right, but it's zoned for what
Well,
your
there
vision
is a special district in there now for, called Village,
I was gonna say it's village.
and it's,
You know,
but it just needs tweaking as far as density and uses permitted and all
I
that kind
don't,
of
I don't think it's good practice for the government to buy it and make it what it wants. You need to zone it for what you would like it to be.
Unless if you wanted it for to expand the park.
That's what I'm
Well,
talking
no,
about,
yeah,
that's what, like, if it
But that's
ever.
not what but you don't put a coffee shop in your park. I mean,
No, I'm not talking
No,
about the
she's
coffee shop,
talking about
I'm just saying to
expansion.
expand the park, like, if that property ever came
I
up for
see.
sale, what is our plan?
Yeah.
Like, do we have any plan, and do we have any resources that we could buy that if it ever came for sale and make that part of the park,
Well,
expand the
there
park?
again, there's no master plan for High Prairie Park either, is there? I mean, in terms of what that ultimately looks like, do we need more land? Is there a demand?
There was some pretty extensive master plan drawings done at one point.
Well, there was, I saw that, Clark, it was.
Yeah.
It was up there.
It was over there.
It's been up there for like,
20 years.
Yeah, it's gotta be
Say
20
more
years
than
old,
10.
Yeah.
or longer.
I don't know when it was done, but it's been there a long time.
Did that plan show any expansion? I don't know.
It showed the walking trail on it.
It did not show, I don't believe it showed land acquisition expansion.
Okay.
I don't believe that was.
No, I think it was just planning around what they already had.
So is that something that we need to put in our plan, or would that be a master plan thing?
Was that expansion?
Yeah, for acquisition, if something like that, if either one of those properties became available,
What,
It goes, from my perspective and my experience is what do you want to do there? And I would be the first one to ask Amber, brings in a ton of money. I would,
Baseball tournaments, we're paying $800 a team to play 3 games. You
but
bring,
there is a substantial cost to maintain that field, the capitalization cost. If you're talking return on investment, the communities that build these types of complexes that you're paying $800 are not funding them from local governmental sources. They're funding
Yeah.
them from the tourism bureau,
but that's what I'm saying, if it goes hand in hand with the campground, you bring in, just for an example,
and
if you improve the campground, we are camping at 5 of our tournaments. So if I have a tournament right down the road, and you have accessibility to either the casino for a hotel, or a campground to go camping with a beach that might be accessible someday, you're returning investment on a campground, you're bringing in multiple teams at how much a night, $80? I don't know what it costs to camp. I mean, I'm thinking,
45 to 55.
so, but I mean, when I go camping, we're paying $100 a night.
And I don't wanna disagree with the idea, but once again, it comes from that list of things, and then you have to look at the return on investment. Is it going to, what is it gonna cost to capitalize? When you buy that piece of property, let's say for $500,000, when will you pay off at $800 a team,
The
the
business.
cost of that capitalization? And to build a irrigated baseball field is now X number of dollars. So you have to look at the return on investment, and then the risk potential. Are those numbers gonna pan out? Are you competing with other areas? Those are all things that the leadership of this community has to look at. There's great ideas, but what is the risk and what does it cost? Can we use $800,000 somewhere else at less risk that provides greater opportunity?
I'm just trying to think tourism, what brings in people, you have to have events.
Yeah, that only.
And that's when you bring it, and then that's what brings in more businesses, maybe more restaurants to the area.
What else do we have that is gonna bring any return on investment besides the campground?
Well, there are certain things now.
As far as parks have to do.
Traverse City has invested a ton of money in their soccer field complex.
We don't have the property.
I'm not saying soccer field, but what they're trying to do is bring tourism in to fill the hotels. They're trying to fill times. So there's more than just the money to capitalize it and to make a profit off of that particular site.
I'm just thinking our area, what will bring it in. And if you start bringing in stuff into our area, maybe you can then, you're bringing in more money hopefully for the campground, we can start updating. Maybe we can then with the horse, I'm gonna say it wrong, because it's always been the horses by the bay, but that community, like the horse, do trail riding events and bring those people in with the campgrounds, and maybe we have that area.
Without a doubt, but I'm saying that list of things has to be prioritized, and you have to look at it from the standpoint of what's it gonna cost? What are we gonna get out of it? And then that's gonna determine, yes, that is a part of the master plan of this park, to build another, because we wanna bring in 3 fields, so we can bring in tournaments here.
So one question I have, you said you pay $800 per team for 3 games. What does Whitewater Township get from Little League for these fields?
right now.
Nothing, right?
From the little community that
What does Whitewater Township
we,
get in revenue for allowing Little League to use the fields?
we,
Tons of volunteer work for
Well,
one.
yeah, but we-
that's not-
You're talking about
donate.
revenue.
But she doesn't, we don't have tournaments here, do we? Because we don't have the facility to do tournaments, so we're talking about 2 different things. I mean, they're using
We need
these.
to answer the question, what revenue do we receive as a result of allowing the activity at the park?
right now, I have to count the banners, we give you guys $50 a banner to allow us to put the banners on, and then the Little League has donated like the time to drag the field, we've updated the bases, keep the parks, working on the parks and stuff.
But no other additional.
But no
fees.
other,
So
no,
it
we
sounds
don't
like
say-
less than $1,000 a year comes in.
Yeah, it's
Probably way less than 1,000. Do you?
But it's all being on like a good Samaritan for the community to be able to use the park.
And we're not disputing that, we're just
No,
asking
no.
for the
No.
facts of.
But-
I'm like
but
500,
see-
probably say 500, say $600.
But see, so it goes against a little bit, it goes a little bit against what you were just talking about, positioning the assets that we have to create revenue, and right now, we have the assets, we're not creating any revenue, we're just allowing them to use,
But I'm talking
so.
about 2 different events.
It's 2 different things.
There's 2 different
We're
things
not
that I'm
doing
talking about.
tournaments over here because we don't have the facility. The tournament, if I'm understanding, if Amber, am I understanding you correctly? So you're not paying $800 to do practice over here, right? You're going other places to other
So my
facilities
kid,
and.
my kid plays out of Saginaw, my oldest. And so when we do tournaments, like last weekend, we were in Canton. We went to Canton, they brought in, just in his division alone, for U13 was 8 teams. That's just U13, they had 8 teams at $800. So what's that, $6,400? Yes, they had to pay for umpires, but most of it was volunteer work, so more than likely, they're capitalizing on $5,000. Then on top of that, they're selling food. They're selling their, drinks, hot dogs, all that, so they're making more
I
money.
did the travel soccer,
Yeah.
the same thing,
So-
but, yeah.
No, they're not being utilized right now as a tournament, so no, there is no investment, but the tournaments come on like Friday, Saturday, Sunday investments. And that's what they're bringing in Sanford, we've been to Sanford, we've been to Rockford, they're bringing in these big tournament events on Friday, Saturday, Sundays.
So what would it take for us to be able to host these tournaments, and who would get that $800 per team? Would it be the township, or would it be?
Well, that's when you would have a coordinator to create these events, they would have to find umpires, and then you would blast it out on the internet, you would send it to multiple downstate teams. They're more than happy to come up here, most of them wanna come up here in July and August because it's a tourist country, yes.
So what would that facility need to be able to host tournaments that could actually make money?
It would have to be cleaned up, you would have to have the bathrooms ready to roll, you'd have to find certified umpires. Not a lot, a third field would make a huge difference. I think Frankenmuth, when we go there this weekend, and I wanna say there's 3 fields. Same thing, we're paying $800, and it's just a field, it's a nice park with a river going through it, and that's it. But they're each team gets 3 games, they play consolation, they get like medals at the end and a banner. They take a picture, they go home, it's great. Like your expenses alone probably $500 to $800 with umpires, depending on how many teams you wanna bring in and what age groups you wanna bring in. Do you wanna bring in the little kids from like U8? Do you wanna bring them all the way up to U14? I mean, if you really wanted to get down with it, to partner with Milton Township, you guys would be golden, because like West Branch, they play a Midnight Madness tournament where they bring in all ages and they correlate their games where they turn on the lights, which is something you guys have, and that's bringing in big money and a lot of teams.
All right, another time check here, we're at 2 hours and 20 minutes, so I think we need to wrap this up. I mean, it's all good ideas, but I think we're kind of just.
No, yeah, I'm just, in the future, what do you want
Yeah,
to see
I
in
think the
that park?
question is, and not what do we want, but what does
The community want, yeah.
So maybe take a look at, it seems to me, take a little look at your questions and make sure, I've had a lot of people say to me lately on surveys, make sure you have a fill in the blank area for what are 1 or 2 things that you really would like to see that we do not offer.
It's on there.
Yeah, good.
Just an open-ended question at the end.
I saw it.
Yeah, okay, so good. I don't know if anybody has any more comments on the 6-year capital improvement plan. I know you can all read, and there is a summary sheet in there. You don't have to read the whole thing. But
I think the walking trail is a great idea, and I think it's a low impact thing, and I think it would be great to try to get a match from the tribe for that. I think they would support that. It
Oh,
just,
it'd be bigger than the tribe.
well, but it's positioning money from them. I think that they would support that.
They could be part of it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that's.
oh, and by the way, I do wanna make sure, did it get communicated through Jill to you that we were successful with the tribe? They said that we can use the $14,000 grant that was intended for the playset. We can use that on the bleachers. So we will, basically, as soon as you are finished, we need to fill out the closeout report on that. And then that's taken care of. It's really important that apparently, we got some feedback recently that we have received grants and not been very communicative on status. And their expectations are that things are handled and closed out quickly and all the documentation is done. And apparently, we didn't have real good remarks on that in the past. And so,
I think that's
I
always.
kind of begged for them to please let us,
So that being
do that.
said, I have an ask of the board to consider. So one of the pictures that I showed of the bleachers, you notice the grass was as tall as the bleachers were. In our original project, we did request to have concrete. We did look into pebbles, stone, crushed stone with weed mat as well. In lieu of the fact that we are reallocating funds from a project that we thought was gonna be playground equipment and is now being transferred into this project, could we reevaluate and assess that project as a whole to allow for that additional base to be added back into that project? Whether it's concrete or whether it's a stone, or if you want options. And I'm only suggesting that because this is gonna be a maintenance issue, it's gonna be time, it's gonna be weed kill. And it's gonna be a continual problem. If we're gonna do something right on this, I feel like now is the time if the board will.
I agree, it's going to be a maintenance issue, especially because we bought heavy bleachers instead of bleachers. So I agree, it is gonna be a maintenance issue, so, I mean, I'm willing to look at a proposal.
It seemed like you could go with the weed mat and stone to accomplish the same thing, can't you? I mean, instead of concrete.
That was one option that we looked at.
Or even sand under it, I hate to see anybody, I just know how kids are.
Well,
Slipping down.
they're real tight down at the
I
bottom.
have to
There's
go
not,
look at them, yeah.
there's
I
not a
haven't
lot
seen
of
'em.
room for,
It's amazing, those old bleachers, they literally had a plank like this and there's like gaps in the front and in the back. I'm like, no wonder why there were so many people falling through and ankle twists. And these new ones, like, there are so many, like, you have backstops, you have
Toe kick.
toe kicks, I mean, it is so much safer in terms of, a whole platform.
but my point is, there's not a lot of room
But there's not,
to the ground for the weeds
Correct.
to grow. I mean, they're
Oh.
just, right? I mean, they're just like right on the ground, aren't they?
No.
Other than the back part, but I mean, at the front, they're just
well,
like,
it's gonna be this high and then this high
Right,
and then
right.
this
It's just gonna
high.
grow, it's just gonna grow around the seeds.
Yeah.
right,
And the other complexity with these, that because they make these stronger is there's more bracing supports than the older one had too. So to get in there even like to weed whack is gonna be more of a challenge, in general. So it's just, I thought, if you guys, I have considered, you know, from a budget standpoint, you cut it out of the original project, but now you've been able to figure out, you know, to reallocate $15,000 back into the budget, into a different area.
That was to cut down the cost of the bleachers, but
Well, yeah.
anyway, but
So what I would say is you're welcome to get estimates, just make sure they're complete, and I think you should ask for various options, you know.
I just don't think for a cement pad to go under a bleacher, that we need to hire Gordy Frazier to do engineering design.
No,
It's
No.
just a cement pad.
No, you don't need that.
we have drawings that I produced.
Yeah.
That were priced from a conceptual basis, they weren't bid priced. And that's what drove the number that was presented, was from A-plus concrete. So we have drawings that show size.
And it's just, you put up the boards and you pour it with the.
Yeah, it wasn't engineered at.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
No, it's not Gordy Frazier.
Oh, okay.
But I will be glad to put a memo together and give some options, we'll work on that in our regular next meeting.
And that also, I hope, was it Mike who dismantled?
Mike Jacobson.
Those bleachers were anywhere from 3 to 6 inches buried in the dirt. I mean, the weight on there, you know, and people moving around, they start sinking.
Yeah.
And that was,
Also, organic material just gets created over time.
And I toured out there, I agree on the shed issue, both sheds are,
I didn't even talk about the other one, the well one.
I mean, I just
Yeah.
was like, seriously, you know, I mean, so we're looking at pretty bad kind of things to break. What's in the other one at the lower?
Nothing.
Then why is it there?
They used to keep a pitching machine and some stuff in there, but everybody's too nervous to keep anything in there.
Last time I was in there, it was a raccoon's house.
Yeah.
So,
All
all right, I wanna bring you guys back to the agenda here. Any comments on 6-year capital improvement plan?
Only in that, I think it's great, I love that this board is diving into looking at doing this, I think it's been a needed thing for a very long time. My question from the PRAC standpoint is the intention that our 5-year rec plan is essentially going to be intermixed with that CIP, or what's that process look like?
Has to be.
It has to be.
Okay, I just didn't know if
The improvement plan.
I didn't know if it was gonna
for the
be-
entire township.
I didn't know if we had to recreate anything in doing,
I
I
don't-
think we can work on some joint forms,
I don't
because I
think
think the planning commission will be preparing some forms that are gonna be for all capital projects. So I think we can take, you're gonna have to generate this stuff anyway for your DNR plan. So I think it can easily be translated
That can
into,
be your starting, estimate conversion. I think but that's supposed to be updated annually, right? And so it's
oh,
not,
yeah, the
it's
capital.
not a set it and forget it plan. It is a set it and reevaluate every year. So it kind of goes hand in hand if you do it right, to time with your budget.
Whereas your DNR plans every 5 years, unless you need to amend it to do a project.
Then we look at the funds available, how much are we gonna budget for capital improvement, where are we gonna do it? Is it gonna be trail, high grade, campground, whatever, and kind of shift the priorities around and fund what we can. And some stuff you might have in your, I'll just call it the DNR one. Out year 3, well, there might be a grant opportunity that came up, and it's like, apply for it, then all of a sudden, if we get it, it moves up to year 1. You know, I mean, so this thing shifts around every year, or mid-year.
That makes sense. But I also think to what Amber talked a lot about is, you know, what's the business case? And it isn't always just money return on investment, but it's who in the community is gonna benefit, how many people are gonna use it. You know, really making sure that you're getting the bang for your buck on your stuff, and we gotta make sure we don't have concentration points of certain things and nothing over here, you know? Cause you have different groups of people that do different things. And, you know, everybody needs to get, you know, a benefit.
Right.
All right, board expectations of PRAC, that's the last item on here. I think I'm kind of all talked out.
I think that too. You know, I think this was good, to have this meeting.
I think so too.
you know, and, because I know there was a disconnect and, you know,
You
things
guys
like
feel clearer about things, about the attitudes of the board?
I think there's definitely clearer messaging, which is great, in communication. That's one thing that's always been lacking in direction, right? So I think having more, Tim and I were talking about, you know, fundamentally having an actual process in place. So i.e., hey, I wanna build a XYZ project. Well, what is the process in place, and when could I go out for grant, and who has to approve it, and those kinds of things. I think there needs to be a little bit.
Well, I think the
Clearer
message is that the
definition.
capital improvements planning process is real, and we're wanna see that this fits in with the larger picture, and this makes sense. You've looked at all the different projects, here's an opportunity to pursue a high priority project with grant money. So let's go get it. Let's go write our best case and try to get funding for it.
But as the PRAC, we're limited on our decision-making abilities, so what is that next step? Like, so is that as an example, we want this project. Does the board have to, approve us moving forward with the next step? Does the board need to approve us even going out for grant funds?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
So that's my point, is that there's never
Yes.
really been that,
Process and
Process.
structure, yeah, we just kind of, in the
So,
last couple months, we've started having like, our meeting next week has Josh Morgan coming in for approval to apply for grants. And then there was the one that Randy was looking at as well, and so yes, you need to have approval to go out for a grant, but I think that getting that structure of the capital improvement plan in place, you know, you need to be communicating.
When you pursue a grant, there's gonna be likely a match required, so that's obligating the township to.
not always, if it's a really small one, you don't.
Well, I think any match would wanna,
well, there's gonna
town board
be
to-
some requirements.
But certainly there's always.
But we have a board member on your committee for a reason, so that board member can come back every month and, or have you come, doesn't matter, but give us a report on what you talked about last month, what are you working on, what are you wanting to do? And then if we don't agree with that direction, you can find out at the beginning. You know, I would say, you know, before you get too far down the road on something and then come to the board at the end of the day and get slammed down that we don't support this, seems like a waste of everybody's time, and you felt that, I know. And so that's what we want to prevent. We don't want you to go so far down that road, but there was an election that happened, right? I mean, you were doing this before we got, but anyway. But just, you know, make sure that you have fundamentally support of the board, and at the end of the day, maybe the bids came in and we just say, we're not gonna spend that much money, we thought it was gonna be this, and we still might say no. But I would just say, get the board's kind of general support before you go too far down that rabbit hole on whatever the project is that you wanna have funded, is my thought, whether it be a grant or otherwise.
Well, I think it's great that we have a board member on the board, because we went for a while with nobody,
And I
and
think
no
it's-
direction,
yeah.
and no input whatsoever.
And I think it's so important too to get somebody from the campground over here too to start participating. So what's the next step on that?
So also, we know for sure that the grant deadline is April 1st every year with the DNR grants. I mean, it's been like that for, as long as I know, 30, 40 years.
How far out do the grants application or the grants, are they sent out? Like, are they
Well,
sent
the
out?
DNR ones, the three main ones for recreation.
But I mean, like, you know they're due every April 1st, like, are they out right now to us to look? I mean, obviously, right
They'll release
now,
the paperwork for the,
Like-
the first of the year,
after the first of the year, so they give you 90 days.
at least.
Okay.
Yeah, that's as a committee, I would like you to, you know, look for those grant opportunities as part of the job, right? As part of, you know, hey, you know, do a little research on that kind of thing, and, you know, what grant opportunities are, when you come back as a committee to say, hey, there's gonna be this opportunity, what do you think? And, you know, those are the kind of discussions I would expect PRAC to be having. Should we apply for a grant for this or that? There's an opportunity here or there, but not just to have Jill send an email that, hey, it's due in 3 weeks, and nobody knew.
No, I feel like we should be working on the grants I think we should be compiling information for grants that we're gonna apply for next year, this year.
Right.
Like have it all ready to go.
Right.
Right, we know it's coming, we know,
Right.
Well, so
the
then
programs don't change that much year to year.
The problem is that we don't know what our 5-year rec plan is gonna look like.
Right, and that's why DNR,
But wait a minute,
that-
you guys even said you thought it was in pretty good shape and.
No, I meant from a community standpoint,
Oh,
from
From
a
a community-
survey.
With survey
but you
input.
have a plan to get that done
Yes.
quickly.
Right.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
so,
But I was gonna point out, Tim, so I don't know if you have it in this budget, but in previous budgets, they have allotted a certain amount of funds for grant writing. So like Amber and I spent tons of hours, and those hours were at least allocating a little bit of money, for that time or an effort. So I don't know if this year, if you guys have money in it for, but we don't have a grant writer, right? And it's a big commitment, so that's something to consider, and I don't know, again, I don't know
Well,
if it's in the budget.
it'd be a professional service, we have 15,000 in there for the 6-year capital plan that you're gonna do, which now we're talking about, you're only gonna need maybe 5. So there's money in there for professional services, if that's what you're asking.
It doesn't matter whether it's professional services or
Well,
whether it's our
I-
extra time above and beyond just meeting at
I
PRAC.
guess the answer is yes, if that's what you're asking.
Yes.
But
Yes.
we'd have to prove it, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to come and ask, and is this something
I
worthwhile
think
hiring
actually
somebody?
there, I don't know, I think there was actually provisions in your hourly rate status of different job positions. I think there was something in there specifically for,
I can't remember what that's called.
but you're looking for a contractual service, aren't you? You're looking.
not necessarily, no, not necessarily,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Possibly, but it could be just time that they
Yeah.
spend on it.
If I spend 60 hours to write a grant, I mean,
That's
it's,
a lot.
Oh, you're talking about the additional compensation,
That's
that's
what it
only
is.
for board
Or-
members. But-
no,
I thought that was also for,
Is it?
I don't know.
Okay,
I think it was in the past, I think there was a provision in
they use it for
there.
that?
I think, you'd
Um,
have to check into it, I don't know.
as far as a parks person to be part of PRAC, we tried to do that with Mike, and it didn't work out so well. But Tom, I saw some emails, Tom said he would attend your meetings or whatever as lead ranger, but the suggestion that he's gonna be this public alternate is not necessary. He's a resource, he's a township employee, and a resource to PRAC. He's not gonna be your second alternate. He doesn't have to go through this process of being appointed. He's just, at our request, he is gonna be asked to participate in being part of your group.
yeah, cool,
So,
I think that's great.
right, I mean, I didn't talk to you about it.
I mean, unless he wants to
I
be
think
a
we
voting
need-
member, I guess, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
We need to just make sure,
Talk to him,
what, what he's comfortable with, you know? I mean, there's been a lot of changes in the last 2
Right.
weeks. Kind of like whiplash. And it's a busy time right now.
Yeah.
Because of those changes.
For sure,
And you're approaching the busy season, so.
for sure.
Do your alternates, when they come, do they get paid the meeting thing too? Okay.
Yeah, and so we have currently an open full-time position on our board. We only have 4 current full-time members. We're supposed to have 5. So that's been an ongoing depletion for a while. And then Tom Cosgrove, it sounds like, is gonna be stepping away from the alternate position. So we really have 2 open alternate positions.
So why don't you put a little ad in the Alcatraz News and see if anyone's interested?
We need to, and we have an open position too, not just alternatives, right? Don't we have one open
Open
position?
regular.
Yeah, so I would really,
That's on
I've
the
talked to
regular
Linda about it a
position,
couple times, that if we could solicit
I would
somebody that has experience with grant writing, it would be amazing. What? Do you have grant writing experience?
That's different than putting a person on a committee, a little different possibly
The answer
saying.
to that is yes, but no.
No, thank you. Okay. All right, but I think at this point, I mean, it's not a big deal at all to put a little ad in the
Right.
news.
You'll be surprised. You'll get
We'll
somebody.
probably check on some,
Thank you.
and they need to contact me, but you can work with Wendy to write that up.
But they have to be a resident.
I
Right,
think it says in here, a resident or a property owner,
right.
either. Okay. All right. All done with comments? All right, we've got public comment again. Barb, would you like to make a
No, you
public?
guys did a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Who's that?
Randy made a motion to adjourn,
Second?
seconded by Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I did print the survey for the board members, so I'm gonna go grab those so you guys can look at those.
All right.
ASAP.
Thank you, that's nice.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you guys.
Together. We didn't talk about Tobaco, if anyone's interested, I do have a Tobaco map.
By the way, this stuff is online, right? It's all online on our website.
You know what's not online is the high grade, or the campground walking trail map. I noticed that when I was.
Here's one of the things I was trying to
find it
go
quick.
to the National Science Foundation, something like Tobago
So we
Swan,
need to
work
get
with the
his-
school,
his
for a
phone number.
5-year grant,
Wendy.
and at each grade level from 6 to 12.
And then we need to just come and say, we're
Before
on
a world was put through, but they did this studies, but we were also doing world study of putting the knowledge to be walking fast, but we got support through the
No way.
National Science Foundation.
Oh, really?
Because then it's an educational, the science and math teachers where science and math is a principal.
So Randy, any
And
cell
so
phone
each
printing
year,
stuff, I
the
noticed that
teachers
you
did
do it
this
where
project and they studied
I
these
can
square
print all this, the heading doesn't go on the next pages.
Yeah, right.
So just make that-
geographic stream studies.
You make it a header.
Speeds and stuff. And all of it, they needed it, and so